You can't love a ghost. That's what Alpha Isaiah Romero told himself every morning for 7 years. Every time he walked past his son's room without stopping, every time he looked through the boy instead of at him. His mate had died bringing Theodore into the world, and his wolf had died with her, or so he thought. Then an Omega Maid, insignificant, powerless, nothing by pack standards, did the one thing Isaiah couldn't. She saw his son, really saw him, held him when he cried, fought for him when no one else would. And the beast inside Isaiah, the one that had been silent for 7 years, suddenly roared back to life with a single terrifying word. Mate. But accepting her meant accepting the son he'd abandoned, meant feeling again when numbness was so much safer, meant choosing love over grief. And that was the most terrifying choice of all. Chapter 1. The boy no one wanted. The morning Theodore turned 5, he woke up screaming. Not from pain though, goddess knows the child understood pain, but from hope. That treacherous, fragile thing that bloomed in his chest every year on his birthday. Every year, he'd press his small hands against his ribcage and wait for the flutter, the stirring, the whisper of fur and fang that would prove he belonged. Every year, there was nothing. Mama? His voice cracked in the darkness of his room, a room that sat in the furthest wing of the pack house, away from the other children, away from the whispers that followed him like shadows. Mama, do you think today? But his mother had been dead for 3 years. Sometimes he forgot. The memories blurred together before the sickness, after the sickness. The funeral where his father stood like a statue and didn't cry, didn't speak, didn't even look at him. Theodore had worn his best suit, the navy one with the silver buttons his mother had sewn on herself. He'd stood there for 4 hours while pack members filed past her casket, and not one of them touched him. Not one of them said, "I'm sorry for your loss, little one." They looked at him the way you'd look at spoiled meat. With disgust. With pity. With the kind of horror reserved for things that shouldn't exist. Because how could an Alpha and a Luna, 2 of the strongest bloodlines in the Northern Territories, produce a child with no wolf? The door opened without a knock. It never did anymore. Privacy was for wolves, not for whatever Theodore was. Up. The voice belonged to Doreen Simpson, the head housekeeper. A stern woman with gray-streaked hair pulled so tight it looked painful. She'd served the Silvercrest pack for 40 years, raised 3 generations of wolf pups, and she looked at Theodore the way you'd look at a stain that wouldn't come out. Your father wants you presentable for the birthday breakfast. Theodore's heart leaped. He's coming to breakfast? Doreen's face didn't soften. If anything, it hardened. The pack elders insisted. Don't get your hopes up, boy. It's politics, not affection. She left the door open, another small cruelty. In a house full of wolves with enhanced hearing, privacy was sacred. Leaving doors open meant you didn't matter enough to hide from. Theodore dressed himself. He'd learned to do that when he was 3, after the nannies kept forgetting to come help him. The clothes were always slightly too small, hand-me-downs from distant cousins who'd outgrown them years ago. Today's outfit was a button-up shirt with a small tear near the collar and pants that stopped 2 inches above his ankles. He looked in the mirror, a cracked thing that sat in the corner, and tried to smile. His mother used to say he had her eyes. Warm, brown, like honey in sunlight. But all Theodore saw was a too thin face, pale skin that bruised easily, and dark circles from nightmares that never stopped coming. You look fine, he whispered to himself. Father will see you today. He'll see you and he'll what? Love you? Acknowledge you? Admit that you exist? Theodore swallowed the thought and headed downstairs. The dining hall was already full. Long tables stretched across the room, filled with pack members laughing, eating, celebrating another day of strength and unity. The children's section buzzed with energy pups showing off new abilities, comparing the size of their canines, wrestling playfully while parents looked on with pride. Theodore stood in the doorway, and the noise died like someone had flipped a switch. Heads turned. Eyes narrowed. A mother pulled her daughter closer, as if wolflessness was contagious. There he is, someone muttered. The empty one. 5 years old. Still nothing. Embarrassment to the bloodline. Alpha Isaiah should have sent him away years ago. It's cruel to keep him here, giving him false hope. Theodore's hands trembled, but he forced his feet to move. 1 step, 2 steps. Toward the head table, where his father sat. Alpha Isaiah Romero was a mountain of a man. 6'5", broad shoulders that seemed to carry the weight of the entire pack, and eyes like chips of ice. Even sitting down, he dominated the room. His presence was a physical thing, power that rolled off him in waves, making weaker wolves drop their gazes and bow their heads. He'd been the most feared alpha in 3 territories. Warriors spoke his name with reverence, enemies spoke it with terror, and he looked at his only son with absolutely nothing. Not hatred, not disappointment, not even pity, just absence. Like Theodore was a chair, a table, a thing in the room that required no emotional investment whatsoever. Father. Theodore stopped 3 feet from the table, the respectful distance for a pack member addressing their alpha. Never mind that this was his father. Never mind that he'd once sat on this man's lap, had once been lifted high in the air while his mother laughed, had once been called my little warrior. That was before his mother died, before the pack realized Theodore would never shift, before his father's wolf went silent and took the man's heart with it. Alpha Isaiah looked up from his meal. For one breathless second, Theodore thought he saw something flicker in those cold eyes. Recognition, maybe. Or memory. Then it was gone. Sit. Not son, not Theodore. Just sit. Theodore obeyed, taking the chair at the far end of the table. 8 feet of polished wood separated him from his father. It might as well have been miles. Doreen appeared with a plate. Scrambled eggs, toast, a small portion of bacon. The alpha's plate overflowed with rare steak, roasted potatoes, fresh fruit. The difference wasn't lost on anyone watching. Eat quickly, Doreen said, her voice low. You have lessons after this. It's my birthday, Theodore whispered. I thought, maybe I could. You could what? Play with the other pups? Her laugh was sharp. They don't want you, child. The sooner you accept that, the easier your life will be. She walked away, and Theodore stared at his eggs. His stomach churned, appetite gone. But he ate anyway. Because refusing food was wasteful. And wasteful things got punished. He was halfway through his toast when the doors burst open. A woman swept in, and Theodore's stomach dropped. Latasha Holden. Beta female, his father's second in command. And the woman who'd made it very clear she intended to be the next Luna. She was beautiful in a sharp way, all angles and edges, with jet black hair and eyes that calculated everything. She'd been circling his father for 2 years now, ever since the mourning period ended, and she hated Theodore with a passion that was almost impressive in its intensity. Isaiah, she crossed the room like she owned it, placing a possessive hand on the alpha's shoulder. I wasn't expecting you at breakfast. You should have told me, I would have joined you sooner. The alpha's expression didn't change. I'm fulfilling pack protocol. The elders requested I acknowledge the boy's birthday. The boy. Not his son. Not Theodore. The boy. Latasha's gaze slid to Theodore, and her smile was a knife wrapped in silk. Oh yes. The birthday. How could I forget? She leaned down, her voice carrying across the silent room. Happy 5th birthday, Theodore. I'm sure this is the year. I'm sure your wolf will come any day now. The way she said it made it clear she believed the opposite. That she hoped for the opposite. Thank you, Theodore whispered. Although, Latasha continued, straightening, the elders were just telling me that if a wolf doesn't manifest by age 5, the chances drop to less than 1%. Isn't that right, Elder Winfred? An old man at a nearby table nodded gravely. Historical records support that conclusion. After 5 years, we've never documented a late shift in the Silvercrest bloodline. The room absorbed that information like a sponge absorbing water. Never documented. Less than 1%. Which meant Theodore wasn't just wolfless now. He'd be wolfless forever. Well, Latasha said brightly. At least you tried, little one. Not everyone is meant for pack life. Perhaps when you're older, the alpha will find a nice human town where you can live. Somewhere you'll fit in better. Theodore's vision blurred. Not here. Not in front of everyone. He would not cry. May I be excused? His voice came out steady. Small miracle. Alpha Isaiah waved a hand. Dismissal. Not even worth words. Theodore stood, placed his napkin carefully beside his half-eaten breakfast, and walked toward the doors. The pack watched him go in silence. Some looked away, some whispered behind their hands. One mother covered her pup's eyes, as if the sight of him would curse her child. He made it to the hallway before his legs gave out. He didn't cry. He'd learned years ago that crying made it worse. Instead, he pressed his back against the cold wall and tried to remember how to breathe. 1% chance. Never documented. Meant for human towns. The words circled his head like vultures. Footsteps approached light, quick, purposeful. Theodore looked up, expecting Doreen coming to yell at him for sitting in the hallway. Instead, he saw her, the new maid, the Omega who'd arrived last week and whom everyone whispered about, not because she was beautiful though she was, in a soft way that made Theodore think of his mother's flower garden, but because she was Omega, the lowest rank in pack hierarchy. And she'd come from a pack that had been destroyed by rogues. Survivor. Orphan. Nothing. Just like him. She was carrying a basket of cleaning supplies, her simple gray dress marking her as staff. Her hair was pulled back in a practical bun, and there were dark circles under her eyes that matched his own. When she saw him slumped against the wall, she stopped. Most people would have kept walking. Most people pretended not to see him. She knelt down, setting her basket aside, and looked at him with eyes the color of storm clouds. "Are you all right?" Her voice was gentle, careful, like she was talking to something wounded. Theodore's throat closed up. When was the last time someone asked him that? When was the last time someone looked at him with something other than disgust or pity? "I'm fine," he lied. She didn't believe him. He could tell by the way her mouth tightened. But she didn't push. Instead, she reached into her pocket and pulled out a small square of chocolate. "I save these for bad days," she said, offering it to him. "Today seems like a bad day." Theodore stared at the chocolate like it was a miracle. I shouldn't. Father says sweets make you weak. Your father says a lot of things." Her voice was still gentle, but there was steel underneath. "Doesn't mean all of them are true." She pressed the chocolate into his hand. And her skin was warm. Wolf warm. With that particular heat that came from the beast inside. She had a wolf. He didn't. The difference between them was survival and whatever he was. But she was still kneeling in front of him. Still looking at him like he mattered. "What's your name?" Theodore whispered. She smiled, and it reached her eyes. "Hazel. Hazel Moss. I'm Theodore. I know." She stood, brushing off her dress. "Happy birthday, Theodore. I hope 5 is a better year than 4 was." Then she picked up her basket and walked away, leaving Theodore sitting in the hallway with a square of chocolate melting in his palm and a strange warmth in his chest that had nothing to do with sugar. For the first time in 3 years, he didn't feel completely alone. He didn't know that 3 floors above him, in the Alpha's office, his father stood at the window and pressed a hand to his chest. Didn't know that for the first time since his mate died, Alpha Isaiah felt his wolf stir, not with grief, not with rage, with hunger. The beast inside him opened golden eyes and growled one word: mate. Chapter 2. A Stranger's Kindness. Hazel Moss had learned 3 things in her 23 years of life. 1. Omegas were expendable. When the rogues came for her pack, they killed the warriors first, the enforcers second, and the Omegas, well, they didn't bother. They just burned everything and left the weakest to scatter like dandelion seeds in the wind. 2. Kindness was a luxury she couldn't afford. Every pack she'd tried to join after had looked at her the same way: Omega, packless, broken. They took her in because they needed cheap labor, not because they cared if she lived or died. 3. Children saw things adults refused to acknowledge. That little boy in the hallway, Theodore, the wolfless heir everyone whispered about, had looked at her like she was a person, not an Omega, not a servant, a person. It had been so long since anyone looked at her that way, she'd almost forgotten what it felt like. Now, 3 hours after that hallway encounter, Hazel scrubbed the marble floors of the packhouse's east wing and tried not to think about storm-brown eyes filled with carefully hidden pain. "You're too slow." Hazel didn't flinch. She'd learned not to. Flinching made the wolves think you were afraid, and fear made them cruel. She looked up at Doreen, who stood over her with arms crossed and a scowl that could curdle milk. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I'll work faster." "See that you do. The Alpha expects these floors spotless before tonight's pack meeting." Doreen's gaze raked over her, calculating and cold. and stay away from the boy." Hazel's hand stilled on the brush. "Ma'am?" "Theodore. I saw you talking to him this morning." Doreen stepped closer, her voice dropping to a hiss. "That child is cursed. Wolfles. An embarrassment to the bloodline. The Alpha tolerates his existence because the elders won't allow him to send the boy away before his 6th birthday. But that doesn't mean you should encourage false hope." Something hot and sharp twisted in Hazel's chest. "He's 5 years old. He's a dead end." Doreen's words were brutal in their simplicity. "And you're an Omega who should know her place. Focus on your work, not on playing nursemaid to a child who'll never amount to anything." She walked away, her footsteps echoing on the marble Hazel had just cleaned. Hazel waited until the sound faded completely before she let herself exhale. Cursed, embarrassment, dead end. She'd heard those words before. Different context, same venom. After her pack fell, after she'd wandered from territory to territory begging for sanctuary, she'd heard every variation of "you don't belong here." But hearing them applied to a 5-year-old child, it made her wolf snarl. Her Omega wolf, small, weak, barely worth acknowledging according to every pack she'd ever known, bristled with protective fury. "He's a pup. He's just a pup." Hazel forced herself to keep scrubbing, one section at a time. Don't think about the boy with his too thin frame and his carefully neutral expression that couldn't quite hide the hope in his eyes. Don't think about how he'd looked at that chocolate like it was treasure instead of cheap candy she'd bought from a gas station on her way here. Don't think about how much he reminded her of herself. She was halfway through the corridor when she heard it. Crying. Soft, muffled, like someone was trying very hard not to make noise. Hazel's hands stilled. She should keep working. Doreen had made it clear, stay away from the boy. Do your job. Don't make waves. But that crying, it sounded like something breaking. She stood, leaving her bucket and brush, and followed the sound. It led her to a door tucked beneath the main staircase. A storage closet, probably, full of old linens and forgotten furniture, the kind of space that existed in every large building, useful for hiding things you didn't want people to see, or people who didn't want to be seen. Hazel knocked softly. "Theodore?" The crying stopped immediately. Silence stretched out, thick and heavy. "Theodore, it's Hazel. From this morning. Can I come in?" More silence. Then, a small voice. "It's not locked." She opened the door slowly, giving him time to compose himself if he needed it. The space inside was cramped and dark, lit only by a sliver of light from a high window. Old sheets covered mysterious shapes, and dust motes danced in the air. Theodore sat in the corner, knees pulled to his chest, face blotchy and wet. Hazel's heart cracked. She stepped inside and closed the door behind her, not trapping him, but giving him the privacy wolves took for granted and he'd probably never had. "Bad day got worse?" she asked gently. Theodore wiped his face with his sleeve, trying to erase evidence of tears. "I'm fine. You're allowed to not be fine, you know. Father says crying is weakness." His voice was so small, so careful, like he was reciting a lesson beaten into him through repetition. Hazel sat down across from him, giving him space but staying close enough to matter. "Your father says a lot of things." Theodore's lips twitched, not quite a smile, but close. "You said that before." "Still true." She pulled her knees up, mirroring his position. "Want to talk about it?" "There's nothing to talk about." But his voice cracked on the words. "Elder Winfred said. He said if my wolf hasn't come by now, it probably never will. He said there's no historical record of a late shift in Silvercrest bloodline, which means I'm just broken. Forever." The last word came out like a sob. Hazel felt her wolf surge forward, protective and furious. "You are not broken. Then what am I?" Theodore looked up, and the desperation in his eyes was devastating. "Everyone else has their wolf. Even Omegas, even the weakest wolves have their beasts. But not me. I'm 5 years old and I'm empty inside and everyone knows it. They look at me like I'm something that shouldn't exist." "I know that look," Hazel said quietly. Theodore blinked. "What?" "I know what it's like to have people look at you like you're broken." She took a slow breath. "My pack was destroyed by rogues when I was 19. I was the only survivor from my family. After that, I spent 4 years moving from pack to pack, begging for sanctuary, and every alpha looked at me the same way: omega, packless, damaged. Like I was a burden they were doing charity by accepting. Theodore stared at her. But you have a wolf. I have an omega wolf. Which, according to most of the world, is barely better than having no wolf at all. She smiled sadly. Omegas are weak, submissive, only good for menial labor and producing pups. That's what they teach us. That's what everyone believes. I don't believe that, Theodore said fiercely. No? Hazel tilted her head. Why not? Because you're nice. And you're strong, I can tell. You don't look at me like everyone else does. His hands clenched into fists. You look at me like I'm real. Hazel's throat tightened. You are real, Theodore. You're very, very real. Then why doesn't my father see me? The question hung in the air like smoke. Hazel didn't have an answer. What could she say? That grief made people cruel? That Alpha Isaiah had lost his mate and retreated so far into himself he couldn't find his way back? That sometimes parents broke and their children paid the price? All of those things were true. None of them would help. I don't know, she said finally. I don't know why he can't see you. But I do. Theodore looked at her for a long moment. Then slowly he scooted closer, not quite touching but closer. Can I tell you something? His voice was barely a whisper. Always. Sometimes. Sometimes I pretend my mother is still alive. I know she's not. I was there at the funeral. I saw them put her in the ground. But sometimes when I'm falling asleep, I pretend she's going to come tuck me in. That she's going to sing me the song about the moon and the wolves, the one she always sang, and for just a few seconds, before I remember she's gone, I feel safe. Hazel's vision blurred. What was the song? Theodore looked up, surprised. You want to hear it? If you want to share it. He hesitated, then started humming. Soft at first, then stronger. A gentle melody that rose and fell like waves on a shore. After a moment, words came. Moon above and wolves below, running through the silver snow. Find your pack and find your place. Every wolf has saving grace. His voice cracked on the last line. She used to say that even the smallest wolf had something special, that the moon blessed everyone differently. But I think she was wrong. I think the moon forgot about me. The moon doesn't forget, Hazel said firmly. Maybe it's just waiting for the right time. What if the right time never comes? Then you find another way to be strong. She reached out slowly, giving him time to pull away, and placed her hand over his small one. You don't need a wolf to matter, Theodore. You matter because you're you. Theodore looked at their joined hands. His was so small, dwarfed by hers. No one else thinks that. Then everyone else is wrong. Even my father? Especially your father, Hazel thought. But she couldn't say that. Couldn't poison a child against the parent he so desperately wanted to love him. Your father is grieving, she said carefully. Sometimes grief makes people absent. It doesn't mean he doesn't love you. It means he doesn't know how to anymore. Theodore absorbed that in silence. Then, do you think he'll ever learn? I don't know, sweetheart. I hope so. They sat together in the dusty closet, and for a few precious minutes, neither of them was alone. 3 floors above them, Alpha Isaiah Romero pressed his forehead against the cold window of his office and tried to understand what was happening to him. His wolf, the beast that had gone silent the day his mate died. The creature that had retreated so deep into his psyche he'd started to wonder if it would ever resurface. For 7 years, he'd been half a person functioning but not feeling, leading but not living, and now his wolf was awake. Not just awake. Obsessed. It had started at breakfast when he'd felt the strangest pull, like invisible threads tugging at his chest. He'd dismissed it as stress. Then he'd caught a scent lavender and something indefinable. Something that made his wolf lift its head and growl. Mate. The beast had whispered. Our mate. Impossible. His mate was dead. Buried in the pack cemetery under an oak tree she'd loved. He'd felt the mate bond shatter. Had felt like half his soul was ripped away. You didn't get a second chance, mate. That wasn't how it worked. But his wolf didn't care about logic. It wanted. It needed. And the scent. Goddess, the scent was everywhere now. Haunting him. Driving him slowly insane. Isaiah had spent the last 3 hours trying to identify it, following the faint trail through the pack house like a man possessed. It had led him to the east wing, to freshly scrubbed floors. And there, a woman on her hands and knees, scrubbing marble with efficient, practiced movements, simple gray dress, hair pulled back, nothing remarkable. Except everything about her was remarkable. His wolf lunged. Isaiah had barely managed to retreat before the beast took control completely. He'd made it back to his office, locked the door, and now stood here trying to breathe through the most intense desire he'd felt in 7 years. Mate, claim, mine. She's Omega, Isaiah said aloud, as if speaking would make it rational. She's packless. She's ours, his wolf snarled. Don't care, want, need, mine. Isaiah's hands shook. This was madness. Second chance mates were rare enough. Second chance mates who were Omegas, unheard of. Alphas didn't mate with Omegas, the power imbalance was too great, the genetic mismatch too severe. And yet his wolf didn't care about any of that. It wanted her with a ferocity that terrified him. A knock at the door made him tense. Isaiah? Latasha's voice, smooth and confident. The elders are here for the afternoon meeting. Are you ready? He wasn't ready. He would never be ready. But pack business didn't stop for personal crises. Enter. Latasha swept in, all sharp edges and calculated grace. She'd positioned herself as the obvious choice for Luna-strong beta bloodline, politically connected, ruthlessly efficient. The pack approved. The elders approved. She touched his arm, and his wolf recoiled with such violence he actually flinched. Latasha's eyes narrowed. Are you all right? Fine. The word came out rougher than intended. You don't look fine. She studied him with the intensity of a predator assessing weakness. You look unsettled. Because I am, he wanted to say. Because my wolf just woke up after 7 years of silence and it's screaming for an Omega maid I don't even know. Because nothing makes sense anymore, and I don't know how to function, when I can barely think past the need to find her, touch her, claim her. I'm fine, he repeated. Latasha didn't look convinced, but she was smart enough not to push. The elders want to discuss Theodore. Of course they did. What about him? Elder Winfred has formally requested that we begin considering alternative arrangements. Her voice was carefully neutral. Given that the boy is now 5 and still wolfless, he believes it would be kinder to place him with a human family, somewhere he might have a chance at a normal life. He's my son, is he? Latasha's voice was soft, but the words cut deep. When was the last time you spoke to him? When was the last time you looked at him as anything other than a reminder of what you lost? Isaiah's jaw clenched. Careful. I'm being honest. Which is more than anyone else in this pack will be. She moved closer, her voice dropping. That child suffers every day he stays here. The pack rejects him. You reject him. Keeping him is cruelty disguised as duty. She wasn't wrong. Isaiah knew she wasn't wrong. He'd seen the way pack members looked at Theodore, the whispers, the avoidance, the casual cruelty. He'd seen his son become smaller and quieter with each passing year. And he'd done nothing. Because every time he looked at Theodore, he saw her, his mate, the woman who'd died bringing that child into the world, the woman whose last words had been, "Promise me you'll love him." He'd promised. And then he'd broken that promise every single day for 5 years. I'll consider it, Isaiah said finally. Latasha's hand squeezed his arm. You're doing the right thing. Sometimes love means letting go. She left, and Isaiah stood alone in his office, torn between two impossible truths. His son needed him, and his wolf wanted someone else entirely. Chapter 3. When Wolves Collide. The pack meeting that evening was a funeral disguised as politics. Theodore wasn't supposed to attend. Children under 6 were excluded from formal gatherings, but he'd learned the art of invisibility years ago. Small body, quiet footsteps, shadows that welcomed him like old friends. He crouched in the narrow space behind the supply closet adjacent to the meeting hall, where a ventilation grate gave him a perfect view of the assembled wolves below. His father sat at the head of the massive oak table, face carved from stone. The elders flanked him, 5 ancient wolves whose word carried the weight of centuries. Pack members filled the remaining seats, 30 strong, all of them radiating the casual confidence that came from belonging. Theodore pressed his face against the grate and tried not to breathe too loudly. Cannot continue this way, Elder Winfred was saying, his voice grave. The boy is 5 years old. By all historical accounts, he will never shift. Keeping him here serves no purpose but prolonging inevitable heartbreak. He's the Alpha's son. Someone argued. Michael Boyer, one of the younger enforcers who'd always been kind in a distant, careful way. Bloodline matters. Bloodline without a wolf is just genetics. Latasha cut in smoothly. She sat at Isaiah's right hand, positioned like she already owned the Luna's seat. Theodore is human in all but name. Would we ask a human to survive in pack life? It would be cruelty. So we abandon him. Michael's voice rose. Send him away like he's garbage. We give him a chance at happiness. Latasha's tone was patient, like she was explaining something obvious to a child. There are human families who would gladly adopt him. Families where he won't be reminded daily of what he lacks, where he can live without shame. Theodore's hands clenched around the grate's metal bars. His heart hammered so hard he thought they might hear it through the floor. They were talking about sending him away. Actually, formally, sending him away. The elders have researched several options, Winfred continued, pulling out a folder. There's a couple in Portland, both teachers, well-educated, stable income. They've been trying to adopt for years. They would take Theodore immediately. Portland is 300 miles from pack territory, Michael said. He'd never see his father again. Perhaps that's for the best. This from Elder Ophelia Hughes, a stern woman with silver hair and eyes like flint. Alpha Isaiah has made his position clear through his actions. Or rather, his lack of action. The boy suffers daily from his father's indifference. Would we not be doing him a service by removing him from that environment? Theodore waited for his father to speak. To argue. To say no. He's my son. He stays. Alpha Isaiah remained silent. The silence stretched out, thick and suffocating. Isaiah? Latasha's voice was gentle, but Theodore heard the calculation underneath. What do you think? Every wolf in the room turned to face the Alpha. Theodore held his breath. His father's expression hadn't changed, still that terrible, empty neutrality. When he finally spoke, his voice was flat, emotionless. If the elders believe it's best for the child, I will not oppose their decision. The words hit Theodore like physical blows. I will not oppose. Not I refuse. Not he's my son. Not even I need time to think. Just acceptance. Surrender. Theodore's vision blurred. His chest felt too tight, like someone was squeezing his ribs. He wanted to scream, to burst into that room and beg his father to see him, but his throat had closed up completely. Then it's settled, Elder Winfred said, satisfaction creeping into his voice. We'll make arrangements with the Portland family. Given the circumstances, I suggest we expedite the process, perhaps within the month. The door to the meeting hall slammed open. Every head turned. Hazel stood in the doorway, chest heaving like she'd run the entire way. Her hair had come loose from its bun, wild around her face. Her simple dress was wrinkled and dusty. She looked completely out of place among the powerful wolves, a dandelion in a field of thorns. And she looked absolutely furious. You can't send him away. Her voice shook, but not with fear, with rage. The room erupted. How dare you interrupt? Who let an Omega into pack business? Someone remove this woman. Enough. Alpha Isaiah's voice cracked like thunder. Instant silence. The Alpha rose slowly from his seat, and even from his hiding spot, Theodore could feel the power rolling off his father. Overwhelming, undeniable. The kind of dominance that made weaker wolves drop to their knees. Hazel didn't kneel. She should have. Theodore knew. Pack law Omegas bowed before Alphas, especially during formal gatherings. It was basic hierarchy, beaten into every wolf from birth. But Hazel stood there, chin raised, meeting his father's icy gaze without flinching. Something flickered in Alpha Isaiah's expression. Something that might have been surprise, or recognition, or... His father's hand gripped the edge of the table so hard the wood splintered. You will leave, Isaiah said, his voice strained. Immediately. Not until you listen. Hazel took a step forward. Several pack members growled. She ignored them. That child Theodore, he's 5 years old. He's alone. He's scared. And you're all talking about shipping him off to strangers like he's a problem to be solved instead of a person who deserves love. This is pack business, Latasha said coldly. You're a servant. You have no say in. I have eyes, Hazel snapped. I've been here a week and I can see what none of you want to admit. That boy is breaking, and instead of helping him, you're going to abandon him. We're giving him a chance at a normal life, Winfred argued. You're giving yourselves permission to forget he exists. Hazel's voice was sharp enough to cut. Because he's inconvenient. Because he doesn't fit your perfect pack image. Because his father, she turned her gaze to Isaiah, and Theodore saw his father actually flinch, is too broken to see past his own grief. The meeting hall went deathly quiet. No one spoke to an alpha that way. No one accused an alpha of failure, of weakness, of being broken, especially not an omega. You overstep. Isaiah's voice was dangerous. Low. The kind of tone that preceded violence. Theodore's father was going to hurt her. Was going to make an example of her for daring to challenge him. Theodore burst from his hiding spot without thinking. He ran through the storage room, down the narrow servants' corridor, into the meeting hall where 30 pairs of eyes turned to stare at him. Don't hurt her. His voice came out high and desperate. Please, father. Don't hurt her. She's just trying to help. The shock on every face would have been funny under different circumstances. Theodore crossed the room and did something he hadn't done in 3 years. He grabbed his father's hand. The alpha's skin was fever hot. Wolf hot. The heat that came before a shift. Please, Theodore whispered, looking up at the face that had once smiled at him, once held him, once called him my little warrior. Please don't send me away. I'll be better. I'll be quieter. I'll stay out of everyone's way. Just, please don't make me leave. Isaiah stared down at him like he was seeing Theodore for the first time. Really seeing him. The silence stretched out for an eternity. Then Alpha Isaiah pulled his hand away. Not violently. Not with anger. Just removed it. Like Theodore's touch burned him. Take the boy to his room, Isaiah said flatly. And remove the Omega from this meeting. No. Theodore's voice cracked. Father. Please. 2 enforcers moved forward. Brett Hawkins, a massive man with kind eyes, lifted Theodore gently despite his struggles. Come on, kid. Don't make this harder. Father, Theodore screamed as he was carried toward the door. Father, look at me, please, please. Alpha Isaiah didn't turn around. The last thing Theodore saw before the door closed was Hazel being escorted out by 2 female wolves, and the expression on his father's face. Not anger. Not even grief. Just that same terrible emptiness. Hazel's small room in the servants' quarters had never felt more like a cage. She paced the narrow space, 3 steps one way, 3 steps back, while her wolf snarled and clawed at her insides. The confrontation kept replaying in her mind the coldness in the alpha's eyes, the pack's dismissive sneers, Theodore's desperate screams as they carried him away. I will not oppose their decision. What kind of father said that about his own child? What kind of alpha let his pack treat a pup any pup, let alone his own, like something disposable? Her hands shook with rage and helplessness. She was Omega. Powerless. She'd already overstepped so badly that it was a miracle they hadn't thrown her out of the territory entirely. Doreen had made that very clear when she'd deposited Hazel back in her room with a warning that sounded more like a threat. One more outburst and you're gone. Do you understand me? Gone. So Hazel was supposed to just... What? Watch them send Theodore away? Pretend she hadn't seen the hope die in a 5-year-old's eyes? A knock at her door made her spin around. She wasn't expecting visitors. Omegas didn't get visitors unless someone needed something. Come in, she called warily. The door opened, and Alpha Isaiah Romero filled the doorway. Hazel's wolf screamed, not in fear, in recognition. The Alpha stood there, 6'5" of barely controlled power, and he looked wrecked. His usual carefully composed expression had cracked. His eyes, those ice chip eyes, were molten gold. Wolf eyes. His hands clenched and unclenched at his sides like he was fighting for control. Out, he said, his voice rough. Hazel's heart raced. What? Everyone. Out of this hallway, now. The command wasn't directed at her. It was thrown over his shoulder to whoever else occupied the servants' quarters. Hazel heard scrambling, Doors slamming. Footsteps retreating rapidly. Then silence. Alpha Isaiah stepped into her room and closed the door behind him. The space immediately felt too small. His presence overwhelmed everything. The air itself seemed to vibrate with barely leashed power. "You need to leave," he said, not looking at her. "Tonight. I'll arrange transport. I'll give you enough money to start over somewhere else. But you need to be gone before morning." Hazel's wolf howled. "What? Why?" "Because..." His voice broke. Actually broke. When he finally looked at her, his eyes were pure wolf. "Because you're my mate." The words hung between them like a grenade with the pin pulled. Hazel's mind went blank. Then it raced. Then it refused to process what she'd just heard. That's not possible." "I know." His laugh was bitter. "I know it's not possible. I had a mate. She died. Second chance mates are already rare. Second chance mates between an alpha and an omega? Unheard of. The genetics don't work. The power balance is too extreme. It shouldn't be possible. But my wolf doesn't care." He took a step closer, and Hazel could see him trembling. Actually trembling. "An alpha. My wolf woke up for the first time in 7 years and it chose you. It wants you. It needs you. And if you stay, I won't be able to control it." Hazel's back hit the wall, not from fear, from shock. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying you need to run." His voice was raw, desperate. "Because if you stay, I will claim you. I will mark you. And I will destroy any chance my son has at a relationship with a father who isn't constantly torn between duty and desire." "Your son needs you," Hazel said fiercely. "My son needs someone who can focus on him, not on." Isaiah's hand slammed against the wall beside her head, splintering the plaster. He wasn't touching her, but he was close enough that she could feel his heat. "Not on a mate bond I don't want, and can't control." "You don't want it?" The words came out smaller than she intended. His eyes closed. "I want it more than I've wanted anything in 7 years. That's the problem." Hazel's own wolf was going insane. Pushing at her skin, demanding she submit. Demand she tilt her head and offer her neck. And accept what the universe was giving her. "Mate, alpha, ours. What about what I want?" she whispered. Isaiah's eyes snapped open. "What? You're standing here telling me to run. To leave. To disappear. You're making decisions about my life without asking me what I think." She lifted her chin, meeting his golden gaze. "What if I don't want to run?" "Don't." The word was a warning. "Don't say that. What if I want to stay? What if I want to help your son? What if I..." She took a breath, the truth spilling out before she could stop it. "What if I feel it too?" The air between them crackled with tension. "Hazel." Her name on his lips sounded like a prayer and a curse. "You don't know what you're saying. I know exactly what I'm saying. I feel the pull. I've felt it since I saw you at breakfast, and I didn't understand it, but now," her hand lifted, hovering inches from his chest. "Now I do. I will ruin you." His voice broke again. "The pack will never accept an Omega Luna. Latasha is already positioning herself for that role. The elders support her, and my son..." He exhaled sharply. "My son deserves better than a father who can't think past his mate bond." "Or," Hazel said quietly, "your son deserves a father who remembers how to feel. And maybe, just maybe, he deserves to see that love doesn't have to come in perfect packages." Isaiah stared at her for a long moment. Something warred in his expression: desire, duty, grief, hope. Then he pulled away, putting distance between them like it physically hurt him. 24 hours, he said roughly. "I'm giving you 24 hours to decide. Stay and face everything that comes with this bond. Or take the money and leave. Either way, I need to know you made the choice willingly." He moved toward the door, then paused. "For what it's worth, thank you. For seeing my son when I couldn't." Then he was gone, and Hazel collapsed against the wall, heart racing, wolf howling, and absolutely no idea what she was going to do. Chapter 4. Breaking Through Stone. Theodore didn't sleep. He lay in his too small bed, staring at the ceiling, counting the cracks in the plaster, 23 visible from this angle. He'd memorized them years ago, during other sleepless nights when the pack's rejection felt like knives and his father's absence felt like death. But tonight was different. Tonight wasn't about feeling unwanted. Tonight was about knowing with absolute certainty that he was about to lose the only home he'd ever known. Within the month, Elder Winfred had said, 30 days, maybe less. Theodore pressed his hands against his chest, feeling for that flutter, that stirring, that whisper of a wolf that everyone else had. If it came now, right now, maybe they'd let him stay. Maybe his father would look at him with something other than empty indifference. But there was nothing. Just his human heart beating its lonely rhythm. A soft knock at his door made him sit up. No one knocked on his door. People either barged in or ignored his existence entirely. "Come in," he whispered. The door opened slowly, and Hazel slipped inside. She looked different in the moonlight streaming through his window, softer somehow, more vulnerable. Her hair was down, falling in waves past her shoulders. She wore a simple nightgown under a worn cardigan. Her feet were bare. "I'm sorry," she said quietly. "I know it's late. I needed to check on you." Theodore's throat tightened. "You got in trouble because of me. I got in trouble because I spoke up. That's not your fault." She crossed the room and sat on the edge of his bed, careful to maintain a respectful distance. "How are you holding up?" "They're sending me away." The words came out flat, emotionless. He'd cried so much earlier that he had nothing left. "To Portland. To people. I don't know. I heard." Hazel's voice was gentle. "I'm so sorry, Theodore. It's okay." It wasn't okay. Nothing was okay. But what else could he say? Maybe it'll be better there. Maybe the people in Portland won't look at me like I'm broken. "You're not broken. Everyone keeps saying that. But if I'm not broken, then why doesn't anyone want me?" His voice cracked despite his best efforts. "Why doesn't my father want me?" Hazel was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was thick with emotion. "Your father is complicated. Grief does things to people, makes them shut down, makes them forget how to love. It doesn't mean you're not worthy of love. It means he's lost. Then why can't I help him find his way back?" Theodore looked at her with desperate eyes. I've tried so hard to be good, to be quiet, to not cause problems. I thought if I was perfect enough, he'd see me again, but he never does." "Oh, sweetheart." Hazel's composure cracked. "That's not how it works. You can't fix broken people by being perfect. They have to choose to heal themselves. But I'm running out of time." Theodore's hands twisted in his blanket. "They're going to take me away and he'll never choose. He'll just forget I existed." Hazel reached out slowly, giving him time to pull away, and took his hand. "What if there was another option?" Theodore blinked. "What do you mean? What if you didn't have to go to Portland? What if you could stay here, in the pack?" "They won't let me." The elders decided. The elders can be overruled by an alpha. Hazel's grip tightened. And an alpha can be influenced by people he trusts. Theodore's heart started beating faster. Are you going to talk to my father again?" "I'm saying, I'm going to try something. But I need to know if you could stay, if things could change. Would you want that? Or would Portland actually be better?" Theodore didn't even have to think. "I want to stay. I want my father to see me. I want to belong here. Even if I never get a wolf. This is my pack. These are my people. Even if they don't want me." His voice dropped to a whisper. "I want my home." Hazel's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. "Then I'm going to fight for you. I can't promise it'll work. I can't promise anything will change. But I'm going to try." "Why?" Theodore asked. "Why do you care? You barely know me." "Because someone should care. And because..." She paused, seeming to choose her words carefully. "Because I know what it's like to lose everything. And I know what it's like to have someone choose you when the whole world says you're not worth choosing. Maybe I can be that person for you." Theodore's vision blurred. "You really mean that?" Every word. He couldn't help it. He launched himself forward and wrapped his arms around her neck. She stiffened for just a second, then her arms came around him, holding him like he was precious. Like he mattered. "Thank you," he whispered into her shoulder. "Thank you for seeing me." Hazel held him tighter. "Always, Theodore, always." The Alpha's office smelled like whiskey and regret. Isaiah sat behind his massive desk, a half-empty bottle in front of him, and stared at the photograph he'd kept hidden in his drawer for 7 years. His mate. His beautiful, fierce, impossible mate. She smiled at the camera with wild joy, her hand resting on her swollen belly. 8 months pregnant. 1 month before everything fell apart. "Promise me you'll love him," she'd whispered as she bled out on the delivery table. "Promise me, Isaiah. He's ours. He's beautiful. Promise me." He'd promised. And then he'd spent 5 years breaking that promise every single day. Because every time he looked at Theodore, he saw her, saw the price of his son's existence. His rational mind knew it wasn't the boy's fault complications happened. Fate was cruel. No one was to blame. But his grief didn't care about logic. His grief saw his son's face and screamed she died for him. So he'd retreated, shut down, become the kind of father he'd once despised, absent, cold, more concerned with pack business than with the child who needed him most. And now they wanted to send Theodore away. The elders had made compelling arguments. The boy would be happier with humans. He'd never fit in pack life. Keeping him here was cruelty. Isaiah had agreed, because agreeing was easier than feeling. Then she'd walked into that meeting. Hazel. His mate. His impossible, Omega, second chance mate. And she'd looked at him with such fierce condemnation that for the first time in 7 years, he'd felt ashamed. "That boy is breaking. And instead of helping him, you're going to abandon him. His father is too broken to see past his own grief." Every word had been a knife, every word had been true. The door to his office opened without a knock. Isaiah's head snapped up, a growl rising in his throat, but it died when he saw who stood there. Hazel. Again. Still. Always. His wolf surged forward with such violence he nearly shifted right there. "You need to leave," he said through gritted teeth. "I told you 24 hours to decide. It's been 3. I've decided." She closed the door behind her and walked forward with the kind of confidence that shouldn't be possible for an Omega facing an Alpha. "I'm staying." The words hit him like a physical blow. "No." "Yes." She stopped 3 feet from his desk. "Close enough to matter. Far enough to be safe. I'm staying, and you're going to stop them from sending Theodore away. That's not. It's already decided?" Her laugh was sharp. "You're the Alpha. Your word is law. If you wanted to keep your son, all you'd have to do is say so. But you won't. Because keeping him means facing what you've done. Means admitting you've spent 5 years punishing a child for surviving his mother's death." Isaiah shot to his feet, his chair crashing backward. "You don't know what you're talking about. Don't I?" Hazel didn't flinch. "You lost your mate. I understand grief, goddess knows, I understand it. My entire pack was slaughtered. Everyone I loved, gone in one night. I spent 4 years wandering, broken, barely surviving. So don't tell me I don't understand loss. Then you should understand why I can't. Why you can't love your son." Her voice cracked. "No, Isaiah. I don't understand that. Because the one thing that kept me alive, the one thing that made me keep breathing when I wanted to die, was knowing that my pack would want me to survive, would want me to honor them by living fully, not by becoming a ghost." Isaiah's hands shook. "She made me promise. Right before she died, she made me promise I'd love him. And I lied to her. I looked my dying mate in the eyes, and I lied. So stop lying." Hazel took a step closer. "Start keeping that promise now. It's too late. The damage is done. Theodore will never." Theodore spent tonight asking me why his father doesn't want him. Her voice was quiet now, devastatingly gentle. "He thinks he's broken. He thinks if he was just perfect enough, good enough, quiet enough, you'd finally see him. Do you understand what that kind of rejection does to a child?" Isaiah turned away, unable to face her. "I don't know how to be what he needs." "Then learn." She moved around the desk, and suddenly she was right there, close enough to touch. Her scent overwhelmed him, lavender, and something uniquely her. His wolf howled. "I can help you. If you let me stay, if you accept this bond, I can help you find your way back to him." "Why?" The question came out broken. "Why would you tie yourself to this mess? To a broken Alpha and his unwanted son? You could leave. Start over. Find a pack that values you. Because that child needs someone to fight for him. Hazel's hand lifted, hovering near his face, but not quite touching. And because you need someone to fight for you too. Even if you don't think you deserve it. Isaiah's control shattered. He grabbed her hand, the one hovering near his face, and pressed it against his cheek. The contact sent electricity through his entire body. His wolf roared in triumph. If you stay, he said roughly, everything changes. The pack will fight it. Latasha will fight it. The elders will call it madness. Let them. You'll be bound to an alpha who doesn't know how to love anymore. Then I'll teach you. Her thumb brushed across his cheekbone, the gesture achingly tender. I'll teach you. And you'll teach Theodore that he's worth fighting for. We'll figure it out together. Together, he repeated. Like the word was foreign. Together, she confirmed. Isaiah closed his eyes, feeling something crack open in his chest, something that had been frozen for 7 years. It hurt, goddess. It hurt like thawing frostbite, but underneath the pain was warmth, possibility, hope. I'm terrified, he admitted. Good. Hazel's smile was small but real. That means you still feel something. We can work with that. He pulled her closer, resting his forehead against hers. The mate bond sang between them, no longer something to resist but something to embrace. I don't deserve you, he whispered. Probably not. Her laugh was shaky. But you've got me anyway, so what are you going to do about it? Isaiah pulled back just enough to meet her eyes. I'm going to be the father my son deserves. Starting tomorrow. Why not tonight? He blinked. It's 3 a.m. Exactly. Which means Theodore is probably awake, terrified about Portland, and convinced no one loves him. She grabbed his hand. Come on, let's go prove him wrong. Isaiah let himself be pulled toward the door, and for the first time in 7 years, he felt like maybe, just maybe, he could find his way back to the man he used to be. The man who knew how to love. Theodore was still awake when his bedroom door opened. He expected Doreen coming to scold him for having his light on. Or maybe another nightmare. His mind playing tricks in the darkness. He didn't expect his father. Alpha Isaiah stood in the doorway, and Theodore's heart stopped. His father never came to his room. Never. Not once in 5 years had he crossed this threshold. Father? Theodore's voice was barely a whisper. Then he saw who stood beside his father. Hazel. Her hand wrapped in his father's hand, both of them looking at him with expressions Theodore couldn't quite read. Theodore. His father's voice was rough, uncertain. Can we come in? Theodore could only nod. They entered together, and Isaiah lowered himself to sit on the edge of Theodore's bed. Up close, his father looked different. Tired. Vulnerable. Human. In a way Theodore had never seen before. I need to tell you something, Isaiah began, then stopped. His jaw clenched, his free hand, the one not holding Hazel's, gripped his knee so hard his knuckles went white. The silence stretched out. I've been a terrible father, Isaiah finally said, and his voice cracked on the words. I've spent 5 years blaming you for something that wasn't your fault. Your mother died bringing you into this world. And instead of loving you the way she asked me to, I've let my grief turn me into someone she wouldn't recognize. Someone I don't recognize. Theodore's eyes went wide. Father, let me finish. Isaiah held up a hand. You deserve to hear this. All of it. I've been cruel. I've been absent. I've let the pack treat you like you're broken when the only broken thing in this equation is me. And I'm sorry, Theodore. I'm so sorry. Tears started falling before Theodore could stop them. You're not sending me away? No. The word was firm. Absolute. You're staying. You're my son. You belong here, wolf or no wolf. And anyone who has a problem with that can answer to me. Theodore couldn't breathe, couldn't think, could only stare at his father and try to process words he dreamed of hearing for 5 years. I don't know how to fix what I've broken, Isaiah continued. I don't know how to be the father you deserve. But I'm going to try. Starting now. If you'll let me. You mean it? Theodore's voice was so small. So fragile with hope. I mean it. Isaiah's hand lifted slowly, hesitantly, and touched Theodore's face. The gesture was awkward, like he'd forgotten how. But it was there. Real, warm. I see you, Theodore. I'm sorry it took me so long. But I see you now. Theodore broke. He threw himself forward, wrapping his arms around his father's neck, sobbing into his shoulder with 5 years of grief and loneliness and desperate hope pouring out all at once. And his father who'd been stoned for so long, wrapped his arms around Theodore and held him. Actually held him. "I've got you," Isaiah whispered, his own voice breaking. "I've got you, little warrior. I'm not letting go. Not ever again." Theodore felt Hazel's hand on his back, gentle and grounding. Looked up through his tears to see her crying too, smiling at him with such warmth that made his chest ache. "We've got you," she corrected softly. "Both of us. You're not alone anymore." For the first time in 5 years, Theodore believed it. For the first time in 5 years, he felt like maybe, just maybe, he was home. Chapter 5. When power meets resistance. Morning came too quickly and brought war with it. Theodore woke wrapped in blankets that smelled like his father, pine and rain, and that particular alpha musk he'd almost forgotten. At some point during the night, after the tears and the promises, Isaiah had carried him to the master bedroom, the alpha's bedroom, a space Theodore had been barred from since his mother died. Now he lay in the massive bed, surrounded by pillows, and for the first time in 5 years he felt safe. A soft knock preceded Hazel entering with a tray. "Good morning, sweetheart. Hungry?" Theodore sat up, rubbing his eyes. "Is it real? Last night, did that really happen?" "It really happened." She set the tray across his lap: scrambled eggs, bacon, fresh fruit, toast with jam, a feast compared to his usual meager portions. "Your father is in meetings with the elders right now. He wanted me to tell you he'll see you for lunch." Theodore's stomach dropped. "The elders, they're going to be angry." "Probably." Hazel sat on the edge of the bed, her expression serious but not worried. "But your father is alpha. His word is law. They can argue all they want. It won't change his decision." "What about you?" Theodore looked at her carefully. "Father called you his mate last night. I heard him. Does that mean? Are you going to be my new mother?" Hazel's expression softened. "I'm not trying to replace your mother, Theodore. No one could. But if you'll have me, I'd like to be someone who loves you and takes care of you, someone you can count on. We can figure out what to call that together." "I'd like that." Theodore picked at his eggs. "The pack won't like it though. You're Omega. They'll say, let them say whatever they want." Her voice was firm. "What matters is what we choose, not what they think about it." A commotion in the hallway made them both look up. Raised voices, footsteps. Then the bedroom door burst open without warning. Latasha stood there, fury radiating off her in waves. Behind her, Doreen looked smug. "So it's true." Latasha's voice could have cut glass. "The alpha has lost his mind and installed an Omega in his bed." How delightfully pathetic. Hazel stood smoothly, placing herself between Latasha and Theodore. "You weren't invited in here. I don't need an invitation. I'm beta female of this pack. I have authority in this house." Latasha's gaze slid to Theodore with such venom he instinctively shrank back. "And I certainly don't need permission from a servant who's deluded herself into thinking she belongs here." "The alpha made his choice," Hazel said calmly. "The alpha made a mistake driven by a phantom mate bond." Latasha stepped closer. "Second chance mates between alpha and omega? It's unheard of. More likely his grief has manifested as misplaced attachment. The elders agree this delusion needs to be corrected before it damages pack stability. Is that what they're discussing right now?" Hazel's voice remained steady. "How to correct the alpha's choices. They're discussing how to handle a leader who's clearly compromised." Latasha's smile was sharp. An alpha who would abandon pack tradition, disregard genetic compatibility, and elevate an omega to a position she's wholly unqualified for. That's not leadership. That's madness. "Or it's evolution," Hazel countered. "Maybe your pack's traditions need updating." Latasha laughed cold and cruel. "You've been here a week. You know nothing about our traditions, our history, our way of life, but you think you can just waltz in, seduce a grieving alpha, and play house with his defective son. Don't call him that." Hazel's voice went deadly quiet. "Why not? It's what he is. Wolfles. broken. A genetic dead end that should have been handled years ago. Latasha turned her full attention to Theodore, and he felt pinned by her gaze like an insect under glass. You should have gone to Portland, little boy. Should have taken the mercy offered. Because now you get to watch your father destroy his pack for a mate bond that shouldn't exist and a son who shouldn't either. Theodore's hands clenched in the blankets, his eyes burned with tears he refused to shed. Get out. Hazel's voice cracked with authority she shouldn't possess. Get out before I make you leave. Latasha's eyebrows rose. You? Make me? You're Omega. You couldn't make me do anything if you tried. Want to test that theory? The tension in the room spiked. Doreen shifted nervously in the doorway. Theodore held his breath. Then a new voice cut through the standoff. Latasha. Alpha Isaiah filled the doorway, and the temperature seemed to drop 10 degrees. Step away from my mate. Now. Latasha turned, and for just a second, Theodore saw fear flash across her face, but she recovered quickly, smoothing her expression into something pleasant. Isaiah. I know exactly what you were doing. He moved into the room with predatory grace. You were told to wait downstairs. You were told this matter was being handled. Yet here you are, in my private quarters, threatening my family. I wasn't threatening. You called my son defective. Each word was precise, lethal. You told him he should have been handled. You implied his existence is a burden. That sounds like a threat to me. Latasha's composure cracked slightly. I was simply stating facts. You were establishing dominance over those you perceive as weak. Isaiah stepped beside Hazel, his hand finding hers naturally. That ends now. Hazel is my mate. Theodore is my son. They are under my protection. If you have an issue with that, you can challenge me formally. Otherwise, you will treat them with the respect their positions demand. Their positions, Latasha's voice rose. She's Omega. She has no position. She's Luna. The words dropped like stones into still water. I'm claiming her officially at tonight's pack gathering. Anyone who objects can submit their concerns through proper channels. Anyone who acts against her will answer to me directly. The room went silent. Luna. He'd said Luna. Theodore's heart raced. Hazel's hand tightened around Isaiah's. Latasha stared at the alpha like he'd grown a second head. You can't be serious. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. Isaiah's voice was steel, wrapped in ice. Now leave. You have until tonight to decide if you can accept this reality or if you need to find another pack. Latasha's face went through several expressions: shock, rage, calculation. Finally, she settled on cold composure. The elders will never accept this. The elders will accept what I tell them to accept. I'm Alpha. My word is law. He paused. Unless you'd like to challenge that? The threat hung in the air. Everyone in the room knew what challenging an alpha meant: a dominance fight to the death or submission. Latasha was strong, but she wasn't strong enough to beat Isaiah. No one in the pack was. I'll see you tonight, Latasha said finally, her voice tight. This conversation isn't over. Yes, Isaiah said quietly. It is. She left, Doreen scurrying after her, and the door closed with a sharp click. Theodore released a breath he hadn't known he was holding. Isaiah immediately crossed to the bed. Are you all right? Did she hurt you? I'm okay. Theodore's voice shook slightly. You really meant it. About Hazel being Luna. About me being your son. You meant all of it. Every word. Isaiah sat on the bed, and the three of them formed a small circle. I need you to understand something, Theodore. The pack is going to resist this. Not just Latasha, others too. They're going to say cruel things. They're going to question my judgment. It's going to be difficult. I don't care, Theodore said fiercely. As long as you don't send me away. As long as you don't stop seeing me. I can handle anything else. Isaiah's hand cupped Theodore's face. I'm never sending you away. And I'm never going to stop seeing you again. That's a promise. What about the elders? Hazel asked quietly. What did they say? Isaiah's expression darkened. They're not happy. Winfred especially. He's calling for a formal vote, wants the pack to decide if an Omega can be Luna. He's using every technicality in pack law to try to block this. Can he do that? He can try. Isaiah's jaw set. But alpha authority supersedes elder council in matters of mate selection. They can vote all they want. It won't change what's already decided. Unless they challenge your fitness to lead, Hazel said. Isaiah looked at her sharply. What? I spent 4 years moving between packs. I've seen alpha challenges. If they can prove you're compromised, mentally unstable, under magical influence, acting against pack interests, they can call for a leadership review. 6 elders can override an alpha if they have majority pack support. Theodore felt sick. They're going to try to remove father from power? They're going to try, Isaiah corrected. But they won't succeed. I have supporters too. Michael Boyer, half the enforcers, the younger wolves who've been pushing for pack modernization. Latasha and the elders represent old traditions, but they're not the entire pack. It's going to be a war, Hazel said quietly. Yes. Isaiah met her gaze steadily. Which is why I'm giving you one more chance to walk away. Tonight, when I claim you as Luna, there's no going back. You'll be tied to this pack, to me, to all the conflict that's coming. If you want to leave before then, I'll understand. Hazel was quiet for a long moment. Theodore held his breath, terrified she'd say yes, she'd go. She'd choose safety over them. Then she smiled, small but genuine. I didn't stay this long just to run when things get hard. I'm with you, both of you. Whatever comes. Isaiah pulled her close, pressing his forehead to hers. Thank you. Don't thank me yet, she murmured. Wait until we survive tonight. Theodore watched them, these 2 people who'd chosen to fight for him, and felt something unfamiliar bloom in his chest. Hope. Real, solid, unshakable hope. The pack gathering that evening was the largest Theodore had ever seen. The great hall, usually reserved for major ceremonies and celebrations, had been opened to its full capacity. Every member of the Silvercrest pack was present. Warriors lined the walls. Enforcers stood at strategic points. The elders sat in their elevated section, expressions ranging from skeptical to openly hostile, and in the center of it all, on the raised alpha platform, stood his father. Theodore sat in the front row with Hazel, both of them dressed in formal pack attire. For the first time in his life, Theodore wore clothes that fit properly, new clothes his father had personally selected that morning. Dark slacks, a crisp white shirt, a small silver pin shaped like a crescent moon marking him as Alpha's family. Hazel wore a simple but elegant dress in deep forest green. No jewelry, no excessive decoration. But she carried herself with quiet dignity that made her impossible to ignore. The whispers started the moment they'd entered. That's the Omega. Can't be serious. Wolfless boy sitting in the family section. This is madness. Theodore tried to block them out. Tried to focus on his father standing tall and confident above the crowd. Alpha Isaiah raised his hand, and silence fell immediately. I've called this gathering to address recent concerns and to make an announcement. His voice carried through the hall with effortless authority. Many of you have questions. I'll answer them now. Elder Winfred stood. With respect, Alpha, the pack has concerns about your recent decisions. Decisions that affect us all. Then voice them. Very well. Winfred's voice was grave. 7 days ago, an Omega refugee joined our pack as household staff. Within that week, you've claimed her as your mate. This is unprecedented. Alphas mate with alphas or strong betas. The genetic mismatch between Alpha and Omega is too severe. Any children would be. Would be what? Isaiah's voice was dangerous. Weak, defective, wolfless, perhaps. The crowd shifted uncomfortably. Theodore's hands clenched. You're suggesting my son's condition is a result of genetic weakness, Isaiah continued. That my late mate, a Luna of impeccable bloodline, produced a defective heir because of some fundamental flaw. Is that your argument? Winfred hesitated. I'm saying genetic compatibility matters. My son is not defective. Each word was sharp enough to cut. He's different. And difference isn't weakness, it's evolution. Theodore may not have a wolf, but he has intelligence, compassion, and strength of character that most of you lack. Shocked silence. No one, absolutely no one, had ever heard the Alpha speak about Theodore with anything but cold indifference. As for Hazel, Isaiah continued, she is my true mate. The bond is real, recognized by my wolf, sanctioned by the moon herself. Her rank means nothing, Her bloodline means nothing. She is mine. And I am hers. That's not a decision up for debate. But Alpha, another elder tried to interject. However, Isaiah spoke over him. I understand change is difficult. So I'm offering a choice. Those who cannot accept my mate, who cannot treat Theodore with the respect he deserves, you're free to leave. I won't stop you. I won't hold it against you. But if you stay, you accept my authority. You accept my family. No exceptions. The hall erupted. Some voices supported him. Theodore could hear Michael Boyer loudly agreeing, several younger wolves cheering. But others protested, elders arguing about tradition, older pack members muttering about disgrace. Through it all, Latasha sat in her section with a small smile that made Theodore's stomach turn. She wasn't arguing, wasn't protesting. She was waiting. Enough. Isaiah's alpha command rolled through the hall like thunder. Every wolf felt it, that undeniable pressure that demanded submission. Most bowed their heads automatically, but Latasha stood. Alpha Isaiah, she said, her voice carrying clearly. I have a formal challenge. The hall went deathly silent. Theodore's heart stopped. A challenge, Isaiah repeated flatly. On what grounds? Compromise judgment. Latasha's voice was calm. Professional. You claim this Omega as a true mate despite all evidence suggesting otherwise. You've suddenly developed attachment to a son you've ignored for 5 years. Your behavior has been erratic, emotional, and inconsistent with pack interest. I challenge your fitness to lead and formally request the elders review your alpha status. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Theodore grabbed Hazel's hand, panic flooding through him. Isaiah stared down at Latasha with an expression of absolute cold fury. You're calling for a leadership review? I am. As is my right as beta female. She pulled out a scroll. I have the required signatures. 6 elders agree to the review. Pack law demands you submit to evaluation or forfeit your position. Isaiah's hands clenched at his sides. His wolf eyes flashed gold. For a long, terrible moment, Theodore thought his father might tear Latasha apart right there. Then Isaiah smiled, slow and predatory. You want a review? Fine. I'll submit to your evaluation under one condition. Latasha's eyes narrowed. What condition? If I'm proven fit to lead, you're exiled from the pack. Permanently. No second chances, no appeals. You're banished from Silvercrest territory for life. Latasha's confidence flickered. Those are my terms. Accept them, or withdraw your challenge. The crowd watched with bated breath. Theodore could see Latasha calculating, weighing risks. Considering odds, she was confident she could prove his compromise. Too confident. I accept your terms, she said finally. Good. Isaiah's smile sharpened. The evaluation will take place in 3 days. That gives you time to prepare your evidence. It gives me time to prove you wrong. And it gives the pack time to decide who they really want as their alpha. He turned his gaze to the assembled wolves. I won't lie to you. The next 3 days will determine the future of this pack. If you believe in tradition over evolution, in bloodline over character, in following Latasha's vision, then support her. I won't stop you. He paused, letting that sink in. But if you believe a true mate bond should be honored regardless of rank, if you believe Wolfles doesn't mean worthless, if you believe strength comes from more than just fang and claw, then stand with me. His hand reached down toward where Theodore and Hazel sat. Stand with us. Theodore looked up at his father, at the man who'd finally chosen to fight, and felt tears burn his eyes. Hazel squeezed his hand and stood. Theodore stood with her, and slowly, one by one, other wolves began to stand. Michael Boyer, a dozen enforcers, several families with young pups, the younger generation who'd been quietly pushing for change. Not a majority, not yet, but enough. Enough to make Latasha's smile falter. Enough to prove Isaiah wasn't alone. 3 days, Isaiah said quietly, his voice nonetheless carrying to every corner. Choose wisely. Chapter 6. Blood and Courage. The 3 days that followed were the longest of Theodore's life. The pack house became a battlefield of whispers and cold shoulders. Wolves who'd always ignored Theodore now actively avoided him, crossing hallways when they saw him coming, leaving rooms when he entered, speaking in hushed tones that stopped the moment he got close enough to hear. But some things changed for the better. His father ate breakfast with him every morning. Actual conversations, not just silent meals. Isaiah asked about his day, his interests, his dreams. Listened when Theodore talked about the books he read, or the games he invented to pass time alone. It was awkward at first. 5 years of distance couldn't be erased in 72 hours. But they were trying. That's what mattered. Hazel moved into the master bedroom officially, though she spent most nights sleeping in Theodore's room, curled up in the armchair by his bed. She said it was because his room was more comfortable, but Theodore knew better. She was standing guard, protecting him from the wolves who might decide to settle scores while the Alpha's authority was in question. On the morning of the 3rd day, Theodore woke to find his father and Hazel arguing in hushed voices outside his door. Too dangerous, Isaiah was saying. If this goes badly, if they rule against me, then we fight, Hazel interrupted. We don't run, we don't hide, we fight. You don't understand what you're asking. If I lose Alpha status, I lose pack protection. They could exile me. Exile both of you, or worse. Or they could kill us. Hazel's voice was calm, matter of fact. I know the stakes, Isaiah. I've known them from the beginning. But I'm not leaving. Neither is Theodore. We're in this together. Silence. Then the sound of his father's rough exhale. How are you so brave? I'm not brave. A soft laugh. I'm terrified. But being brave isn't about not being scared. It's about staying even when you are. Theodore pressed his ear against the door, his heart in his throat. 3 hours, Isaiah said quietly. In 3 hours, the pack assembles for evaluation. Everything we've built, this fragile, beautiful thing we've started, it all depends on the next few hours. Then we make those hours count. Hazel's voice softened. Come on. Let's wake Theodore and have breakfast as a family. However this ends, let's make sure he knows he was loved. The door opened before Theodore could scramble back to bed. His father stood there, looking exhausted but determined. Were you eavesdropping? Theodore's face flushed. I'm sorry. I didn't mean. It's all right. Isaiah managed a small smile. You have a right to know what's happening. This affects your life too. Are we going to lose? Theodore asked quietly. Isaiah was quiet for a long moment. Then he crouched down to Theodore's eye level, something he'd started doing in the past 3 days, making himself smaller so Theodore didn't have to look up at him like a distant authority figure. I don't know, he admitted. Latasha has support. The elders are on her side. A lot of the older pack members agree with her that tradition matters more than change. But I also have supporters, wolves, who believe in evolution, who want our pack to be better. It could go either way. What happens if you lose? Then I'm no longer Alpha. Someone else, probably Latasha, takes over. We'd likely be asked to leave pack territory. All 3 of us? All 3 of us. Isaiah's hand cupped Theodore's face. But wherever we go together. That's not negotiable. Theodore threw his arms around his father's neck. I don't care about the pack. I don't care about being here. I just want you. I just want us to stay together. Isaiah's arms tightened around him. Then that's exactly what we'll do. The evaluation chamber was different from the main gathering hall. This was older, more formal. A circular room with stone walls covered in ancient pack symbols. 5 chairs for the reviewing elders sat on one side. The Alpha's position stood alone opposite them, a single chair on a raised platform, isolated and exposed. The pack filed in silently. No cheering, no talking. Just the weight of judgment pressing down on everyone. Theodore sat in the front row with Hazel, his hand gripping hers so tight his fingers ached. Around them, pack members watched with expressions ranging from sympathy to open hostility. Latasha sat with her supporters, a formidable group, including most of the elder wolves, several high-ranking enforcers, and families who'd served the pack for generations. She looked confident, polished, ready. Michael Boyer caught Theodore's eye from across the room and nodded a small gesture of solidarity. Theodore tried to smile back but couldn't quite manage it. The reviewing elders entered: Winfred, Ophelia, and 3 others whose names Theodore had learned in the past 3 days. Erwin Baird, Winifred Lozano, and Scotty Mackenzie. All of them ancient, all of them powerful, all of them looking at Isaiah with expressions that suggested judgment had already been passed. Alpha Isaiah stood alone on his platform, shoulders back, chin high, He wore traditional Alpha regalia, dark leather marked with silver pack symbols, a cloak that had belonged to his father and his father's father. He looked every inch the leader he'd been for 12 years. Elder Winfred rose. "We gather for formal evaluation of Alpha Isaiah Romero, challenged by Beta Latasha Holden, on grounds of compromised judgment. This proceeding is governed by ancient pack law and will be conducted with absolute neutrality." A lie, Theodore thought. There was nothing neutral about the way the elders were looking at his father. "Beta Latasha," Winfred continued, "present your evidence." Latasha stood gracefully. "Thank you, Elder. My case is simple. Our Alpha's recent behavior demonstrates compromised judgment that threatens pack stability and safety." She pulled out a folder thick with documents. Exhibit 1. Alpha Isaiah's neglect of his son for 5 years, followed by sudden, extreme attachment. This erratic emotional shift suggests instability. Theodore flinched. Hazel's hand squeezed his. Exhibit 2. Claiming a second-chance mate bond with an Omega. A phenomenon so rare as to be legendary. Suggesting delusion or magical interference rather than genuine mate recognition. Exhibit 3. Threatening to dissolve pack traditions regarding genetic compatibility and mate selection, undermining generations of careful bloodline management. Exhibit 4. Placing personal desires above pack welfare by refusing to send the Wolfles heir to a more suitable environment, instead exposing him to continued pack rejection and trauma. She set the folder down. In summary, our Alpha is acting from grief-induced trauma, not rational leadership. He's making decisions that serve his emotional needs while ignoring pack consequences. This isn't leadership, it's a breakdown. The room was silent. Theodore felt sick. Every word was designed to paint his father as unstable, himself as a burden, and Hazel as a delusion. Winfred nodded gravely. "Thank you, Beta. Alpha Isaiah, you may respond." Isaiah rose slowly. When he spoke, his voice was steady, calm. Not defensive, just truthful. "Latasha is correct about one thing. My behavior has changed dramatically in the past week. But change isn't evidence of instability, it's evidence of healing." He looked directly at the elders. "For 7 years, I've been half alive. My mate died, my wolf went silent, and I retreated into grief so deep I forgot how to be anything but Alpha. I forgot how to be a father. A man. A person who felt anything beyond duty and rage. Then Hazel arrived." His voice softened. "And my wolf woke up. Not because of delusion. Not because of magic. Because the moon saw fit to give me a second chance I don't deserve but will spend the rest of my life honoring." As for Theodore, Isaiah's gaze found his son in the crowd. "I failed him. For 5 years, I let grief turn me into the kind of father I despised. I looked at him and saw only loss instead of the gift I'd been given. That's not instability. That's honesty. And recognizing that failure, choosing to fix it, that's growth." Elder Ophelia leaned forward. "Pretty words, Alpha. But Beta Latasha raises valid concerns. An Omega Luna has never been done in Silvercrest history. The genetic risks are theoretical," Isaiah interrupted, "and irrelevant. Hazel is my mate. That's not a political decision. It's not a strategic alliance. It's fate. Would you have me reject a gift from the moon herself? We would have you consider pack welfare over personal desire," Winfred said coldly. "I am considering pack welfare." Isaiah's voice hardened. "A pack that rejects change, that clings to tradition so tightly it can't evolve, that's a pack that will die. Look at our numbers. We've lost members every year for a decade. Younger wolves leave for more progressive packs. Families choose territories that don't treat Omegas like slaves and wolfless pups like defects." He paused, letting that sink in. "You think I'm compromised. I think you're afraid. Afraid that if I succeed with an Omega Luna and a wolfless heir, it proves everything you've believed about bloodlines and hierarchy is wrong." The accusation hung in the air like smoke. Elder Irwin stood. "You overstep, Alpha." "No. I'm finally stepping up." Isaiah's gaze swept the room. "You want evidence I'm fit to lead? Look at the wolves standing with me. Michael Boyer, one of our best enforcers. The entire youth training program. Half the mated couples under 30. They're not following a compromised Alpha. They're following a vision of what this pack could become. They're following emotion. Latasha cut in sharply. Romance. The pretty story of the broken alpha, finding love. But stories don't run packs. Strength does. Tradition does. And you're asking us to throw both away for an Omega and a Wolfles child. I'm asking you to remember that strength comes in many forms. Isaiah's voice was quiet, but it carried. And that tradition without evolution is just slow death. Silence fell. The elders looked at each other. Some expression passed between them, some decision already made. Winfred stood. The reviewing council will now deliberate. All parties will wait outside while we discuss and vote. Wait, Isaiah started. Those are the rules, Alpha. Even you must follow them. Isaiah's jaw clenched, but he nodded. He descended from the platform and crossed directly to where Theodore and Hazel sat. Come on, he said quietly. Whatever happens, we wait together. They filed out with the rest of the pack. The hallway outside the evaluation chamber buzzed with tension. Wolves clustered in groups, some supporting Isaiah, others clearly aligned with Latasha. Theodore pressed close to Hazel's side, trying to block out the whispers. Never rule in his favor. Tradition is tradition. That Omega will destroy everything. Michael appeared beside them, his expression grim. It doesn't look good. The elders went in already convinced. Winfred's been campaigning against you for days. I know, Isaiah said quietly. So what's the plan if they rule against you? We leave. Tonight. I have resources outside pack territory. We'll survive. What about those of us who support you? Michael asked. You've got at least 40 wolves who'd follow you anywhere. You could split the pack, take your supporters and form a new territory. Isaiah shook his head. That would mean war. Silvercrest against my new pack. I won't ask wolves to choose between their families and their beliefs. So, you'll just give up? I'll accept the ruling and move forward. That's all anyone can do. Theodore looked up at his father. You're really okay with losing? Isaiah crouched down again, meeting Theodore's eyes. I'm okay with whatever keeps us together. The alpha position isn't worth having if it means sacrificing you or Hazel. I chose wrong once, put duty over family, tradition over love. I won't make that mistake again. But the pack needs you. The pack needs a leader who believes in them. If that's not me anymore, then maybe it's time for someone else. The evaluation chamber doors opened. Elder Winfred emerged, his expression unreadable. We've reached our decision. All parties returned to the chamber. Theodore's heart hammered as they filed back in. The room felt smaller now, more oppressive. The 5 elders stood in a line. Faces grave. Winfred cleared his throat. After careful deliberation, considering all evidence presented, we've reached a unanimous decision. Theodore held his breath. Alpha Isaiah Romero, you are found. The doors burst open. A young wolf, barely 18, covered in blood and dirt, staggered into the chamber. Rogues, she gasped. On the eastern border. Dozens of them. They're attacking the patrol camps. Instant chaos. Warriors surged to their feet. Enforcers drew weapons. The elders shouted for order. Isaiah moved faster than anyone. Michael, mobilize the warriors. Divide them into 3 squads. You take the eastern approach. I'll take the... You're not alpha yet. Latasha cut in coldly. Not until the verdict is delivered. This isn't your command to give. Isaiah spun on her. There are wolves dying on our border, and you want to debate chain of command? I want to follow pack law. Latasha's voice was ice. Elders, deliver your verdict. Now, then we know who leads the defense. Winfred looked torn. Ophelia looked horrified. The young messenger collapsed, blood spreading across the floor. Elder Winfred, Michael roared. Verdict or not? We need to move now. The old wolf seemed to age 10 years in seconds. Then he straightened. The evaluation is suspended pending emergency. Alpha Isaiah, you retain authority during crisis. Defend the pack. Suspended? Latasha's voice rose. That's not enough. Winfred's command cracked like a whip. Rogues don't care about our politics. Save your pack, Alpha. We'll finish this later. Isaiah didn't wait for more. Michael, Eastern squad move. Brett, take the northern approach in case they're trying to flank. Latasha, organize evacuation of the civilian compound. Everyone else, defensive positions. Now. The pack moved like a well-oiled machine. 5 years of Isaiah's leadership, whatever his personal failures, had created warriors who knew how to respond to threats. Theodore watched his father transform. Gone was the grieving man, the uncertain father. This was the alpha, pure command and lethal purpose. Isaiah grabbed Hazel's shoulders. Take Theodore to the bunker. Stay there until I come for you. I can help, Hazel protested. I can fight. You're not trained. Theodore needs you more than the battlefield does. His voice softened. Please, I need to know you're both safe. I can't focus if I'm worried about you. Hazel looked like she wanted to argue. Then she saw the desperation in his eyes and nodded. Come back to us. Always. He pulled her in for a quick, fierce kiss, then touched Theodore's face. Be brave, little warrior. I'll be back before you know it. Then he was gone, running toward the sounds of battle already echoing from the eastern border. Hazel grabbed Theodore's hand. Come on. The bunker is underground, behind the pack house. You'll be safe there. They ran through hallways filled with organized chaos. Wolves grabbing weapons, pups being ushered to safety, healers preparing the medical wing. They were halfway to the bunker when Theodore heard it. A child's scream, high-pitched, terrified, coming from the direction of the old storage wing. Wait, Theodore pulled against Hazel's grip. Someone's there. Someone's trapped. We don't have time. Please. Theodore's eyes were wide. What if it's a pup? What if they got left behind? Hazel looked torn. Then she cursed under her breath. Stay behind me. And if I tell you to run, you run. Understood? They ran toward the screaming. The storage wing was supposed to be empty, all civilians evacuated already. But the screaming continued, growing more desperate. Hazel kicked open the door. Inside, huddled in the corner, was a small girl, maybe 4 years old. Theodore recognized her, Diana Mac's daughter, one of the pups who'd always looked at him with cautious curiosity rather than outright disgust. And standing between her and the door was a rogue wolf. Massive, scarred, eyes wild with bloodlust. The rogue's head turned toward them, lips pulling back to reveal fangs stained with fresh blood. Hazel pushed Theodore behind her. Get the girl and run. Now? But, now. The rogue lunged. Hazel shifted a blur of gray fur and desperate courage. Her Omega wolf was smaller than the rogue by half, but she threw herself at him anyway, teeth sinking into his shoulder. Theodore didn't think. He ran to the little girl, grabbing her hand. Come on. We have to go. I'm scared, she sobbed. Me too. That's why we're running. He pulled her toward the door, looking back just in time to see the rogue throw Hazel against the wall. She hit with a sickening crunch and didn't get up. Hazel! Theodore screamed. The rogue turned toward them, stalking forward, death in its eyes. Theodore pushed the little girl behind him and spread his arms wide, a tiny human boy trying to protect a pup from a monster. Leave her alone, he said, his voice shaking. You want someone to hurt me. I'm Wolfles, I'm worthless, but she's pack, she matters. The rogue paused, tilted its head, then lunged, and stopped midair. Isaiah stood in the doorway, one hand wrapped around the rogue's throat. His eyes were pure gold. His alpha aura filled the room like physical force. You, he said quietly, made a fatal mistake. He snapped the rogue's neck with casual efficiency, dropping the body like garbage. Then he saw Hazel, unconscious against the wall, and Theodore standing over the little girl with tears streaming down his face. Theodore. I'm okay, Theodore managed. But Hazel, she saved us. She fought him even though she's Omega. Eyes across the room in 2 strides, and gathered them both, Theodore and the little girl, into his arms. You're safe. You're both safe. Hazel. Theodore sobbed. You have to help Hazel. Isaiah released them, and moved to where Hazel lay crumpled. His hands were gentle as he checked her pulse, her breathing. She's alive, he said after a moment that felt like eternity. Concussed. Maybe some broken ribs, but alive. He lifted her carefully, then looked at Theodore. Can you lead us to the bunker? Theodore wiped his eyes and nodded. Follow me. They moved through the pack house and Alpha, carrying his unconscious Omega mate, a Wolfles boy leading the way, and a 4-year-old pup who kept saying thank you over and over again. Behind them, the sounds of battle raged. But in that moment, covered in blood and fear and desperate love, they were exactly what a family should be. Broken, brave, together. Chapter 7. When courage speaks louder than blood. The bunker was carved deep into the earth beneath the pack house, a remnant from the territory wars generations ago. Stone walls, reinforced steel doors, and enough supplies to keep 50 wolves alive for weeks if necessary. Now it held 30 terrified civilians, 5 healers, and 1 unconscious Omega who'd thrown herself at a rogue twice her size to protect children she barely knew. Theodore sat beside Hazel's makeshift bed, really just blankets spread over a cot, and held her hand while a healer named Kelly Munoz worked on her injuries. 3 broken ribs, Kelly murmured, her hands glowing faintly with healing energy. Concussion. Severe bruising. She's lucky to be alive. She's not lucky, Theodore said quietly. She's brave. Kelly glanced at him, surprise flickering across her face. Yes. She is. Isaiah paced near the bunker entrance, listening to status reports crackling through a radio. Michael's voice came through static. Eastern perimeter secure, casualties, minimal rogues retreating. How many rogues? Isaiah demanded. 43 confirmed kills. We captured 5 alive for questioning. No more attacks on other borders. They came specifically for the eastern approach. Why? Unknown. But Alpha, they were organized. This wasn't random. Someone planned this. Isaiah's jaw clenched. Keep 2 squads on patrol. I want eyes on every inch of our border. And Michael? Get me those prisoners. I want to know who sent them. Copy that. The radio went silent. Theodore watched his father's face, the hard lines, the barely controlled fury. Father? What does it mean that they were organized? Isaiah turned, and his expression softened slightly when he saw Theodore. It means someone wanted to attack us during the evaluation. Someone knew we'd be distracted. You think someone in the pack? I think there are too many coincidences. Isaiah crossed to sit beside Theodore. But right now, that's not our biggest concern. How is she? Stable, Kelly reported. She should wake up within the hour. Full recovery will take a few days, but she'll be fine. Thank the moon. Isaiah's hand touched Hazel's forehead, brushing back her hair with surprising gentleness. The little girl Theodore had saved, he'd learned her name was Mara, sat nearby with her mother Diana. The woman kept looking at Theodore with an expression he'd never seen before. Gratitude. Respect. Theodore? Diana called softly. He looked up. I wanted to say thank you. For saving my daughter. You didn't have to. You could have run. But you stayed. Theodore's cheeks flushed. I couldn't leave her. Most would have. Diana's voice was thick with emotion. You're braver than any wolf I know. Before Theodore could respond, Mara scrambled over and threw her arms around his neck. You're a hero, she whispered. Even without a wolf. You're still a hero. Something cracked open in Theodore's chest. He hugged her back, tears burning his eyes. Around the bunker, other civilians were watching. Listening. And Theodore could see the shift in their expressions, the way they looked at him now. Not with pity or disgust. With recognition. The bunker door opened with a heavy clang. Michael entered, covered in blood and dirt, but grinning. We won. Rogues are dead or captured. No pack casualties except minor injuries. Cheers erupted. Relief flooded through the space like fresh air. What about the prisoners? Isaiah asked. Michael's grin faded. That's the interesting part. You need to see this. Isaiah looked at Theodore. Stay here. Keep Hazel safe. I will. Isaiah and Michael left. Theodore turned back to Hazel just as her eyes fluttered open. Theodore? Her voice was rough, pained. I'm here. You're safe. You saved us. The girl Mara. She's fine. You protected her. You protected both of us. Theodore's grip on her hand tightened. You fought a rogue even though you're Omega. You could have died. You stood in front of her too. Hazel managed a weak smile. Guess we're both idiots. Guess so. She tried to sit up and winced. Theodore helped adjust pillows behind her. What happened after? Father came, killed the rogue, carried you here. Theodore's voice dropped. The pack saw, Hazel. They saw you fight. Saw me try to protect Mara. Diana thanked me, called me brave. People are looking at me different now. Hazel's eyes shimmered with tears. Because you are brave. You always have been. I was so scared. Being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means acting despite the fear. She touched his face gently. You did good, sweetheart. Your mother would be so proud. Theodore couldn't hold back anymore. He carefully hugged her, mindful of her injuries, and let himself cry. Not from pain or fear this time. From relief. From the overwhelming realization that maybe, just maybe, he wasn't as worthless as he'd always believed. Above ground, in the interrogation chamber, Isaiah stared at the captured rogue and felt ice settle in his veins. The rogue was young, maybe 25, skinny from weeks of rough living, but his eyes weren't wild like typical rogues. They were calculating, aware. Talk, Isaiah commanded, his alpha aura pressing down like physical weight. Who sent you? The rogue laughed, broken, bitter. You already know. Say it anyway. You're Beta. Latasha. He spat blood. She approached our pack 2 weeks ago. Said if we attacked during some fancy pack ceremony, she'd pay us in territory and resources. Said you'd be distracted, your defenses would be weak. Easy prey. Michael swore viciously. Several warriors who'd gathered to listen shifted with barely contained rage. She hired rogues to attack her own pack. Isaiah said flatly. Not a question. A confirmation of suspicions. She said it was for the greater good. Said you were compromised. Said the pack needed stronger leadership. The rogue's laugh turned manic. Guess she was wrong about the easy prey part. Isaiah turned to Michael. Where is she? We haven't seen her since the battle started. She was supposed to be organizing civilian evacuation, but find her. Now. Michael nodded and left at a run. Isaiah looked at the remaining warriors. This information doesn't leave this room. Not yet. I want confirmation before we move. But he already knew. The pieces fit too perfectly. Latasha had orchestrated everything, the challenge, the evaluation, timing, the attack. She'd been willing to sacrifice pack members for power. Her own people. The realization made him sick. 15 minutes later, Michael returned with 4 enforcers dragging a struggling Latasha between them. Let me go. She snarled. I'm Beta. You can't. She saw Isaiah's face and went very still. You hired rogues, Isaiah said quietly. You paid them to attack during the evaluation. You were willing to let pack members die for political advantage. Latasha's chin lifted. I did what was necessary. You're weak. Compromised. The pack needed to see. Needed to see what? Their Beta betraying them? Isaiah's voice was still quiet, but fury radiated from every word. You talk about tradition, about pack welfare, about strength, and you hire outsiders to kill your own people. I was protecting the pack from you. Latasha's composure shattered. You're mating an Omega. Keeping a Wolfles heir. Destroying everything we've built. I couldn't let you. So you committed treason. Elder Winfred's voice cut through her tirade. Everyone turned. The 5 reviewing elders stood in the doorway. Having heard everything, Winfred looked ancient. Tired. We came to deliver the verdict. But it seems the moon has already decided. He stepped forward, and his voice carried the weight of centuries. Latasha Holden, you are found guilty of treason against your pack. You orchestrated an attack that could have killed dozens. You betrayed the trust of your alpha and your people. By ancient law, the punishment is death or exile. Alpha Saya, the choice is yours. Everyone looked at Isaiah. Theodore's father stood there, power radiating from him, and for a long moment said nothing. Then, exile. Effective immediately. You have 1 hour to gather your belongings and leave pack territory. If you ever return, you will be killed on sight. Latasha stared at him. That's it? No execution? No torture? You're just going to let me walk away? I'm letting you live. That's more mercy than you showed my pack. Isaiah's eyes were ice. But understand this, you will be marked as traitor. Every pack in the territory will know what you did. No one will take you in. You'll spend the rest of your life as the thing you despise most, packless, alone, nothing. The words hit harder than any physical blow. Latasha's face went white. then red. Then she laughed high and broken. You think this is over? You think mating an Omega and keeping that worthless boy will save you? The pack will never truly accept. Get her out of my sight, Isaiah ordered. The enforcers dragged her away, still screaming threats and curses. Silence fell. Elder Winfred cleared his throat. Alpha Isaiah. About the evaluation verdict. I don't care. Isaiah's voice was flat. Rule however you want. I'm done playing politics. My mate nearly died protecting pack children. My son stood against a rogue to save a pup. They've proven their worth 10 times over. If the pack can't see that, then maybe I'm not the alpha you need. Alpha, Ophelia started. No. Isaiah held up a hand. I mean it. I won't apologize for loving an Omega. I won't apologize for finally being a father to my son. If that makes me unfit to lead, then find someone else. But I'm not giving them up. Not for tradition. Not for bloodlines. Not for anything. The elders looked at each other. Some unspoken communication passed between them. Finally, Winfred spoke. Before the attack interrupted us, we had reached our verdict. We were prepared to rule against you. Isaiah's jaw clenched, but he nodded. I understand. However, Winfred's voice softened slightly. What we witnessed today changes things. Your Omega mate threw herself at a rogue to protect children who aren't her own. Your Wolfles son risked his life for a pup from a family that's shown him nothing but cruelty. And you chose your family over glory, carried your injured mate to safety before returning to battle. He paused. That's not compromised judgment. That's exactly the kind of leadership this pack needs. Isaiah's eyes widened. What are you saying? I'm saying the verdict is reversed. You are found fit to lead. Your mate bond is recognized as legitimate, and your son, Winfred, looked at Isaiah seriously. Your son stays. Wolfless or not. He's proven he has the heart of a warrior. The room erupted. Warriors cheered. Michael grabbed Isaiah in a crushing hug, and Isaiah the alpha who'd been stoned for 7 years let himself smile, really smile. Down in the bunker, Theodore felt the moment the verdict was delivered. Not because anyone told him, not because of any message, but because suddenly, the civilians around him started cheering. Word spread like wildfire, whispered from wolf to wolf, passed through the pack bond that connected them all. The alpha was found fit, the Omega was recognized, the wolfless heir was staying. Diana knelt in front of Theodore. Your pack, she said simply. Really truly pack. Not because of bloodline or wolf status. Because of what you did today. Other civilians gathered around people who'd ignored him, avoided him, treated him like he was invisible for 5 years. Now they touched his shoulder, ruffled his hair, smiled at him with genuine warmth. You saved my niece, one woman said. You showed more courage than most warriors, a man added. We were wrong about you, someone else murmured. We're sorry. Theodore couldn't speak, could only nod and try not to cry. Hazel's hand found his. Told you, she whispered. Told you that you mattered. The bunker door opened. Isaiah appeared, and the look on his face told Theodore everything. We won, his father said simply. Theodore launched himself across the space and into his father's arms. Isaiah caught him, lifting him up like he weighed nothing, holding him close. We won, Theodore repeated. We get to stay. We're family. We're home. Isaiah finished. We're home. And for the first time in 5 years, Theodore believed it. Chapter 8. Healing and New Beginnings. 3 weeks later, Theodore woke to sunlight streaming through windows that faced the pack gardens instead of the back alley. His new room, the one his father had personally chosen and furnished, was 3 times the size of his old space. Real furniture, not hand-me-downs. Curtains that matched the bedspread. Bookshelves his father had ordered custom-built because Theodore mentioned he liked to read. But the best part wasn't the room itself. It was waking up knowing he was wanted. A soft knock preceded his father entering with a breakfast tray. This had become their morning ritual, Isaiah bringing Theodore breakfast, sitting with him while he ate, talking about the day ahead. Morning, little warrior. Isaiah set the tray across Theodore's lap. Sleep well? Really well. Theodore looked at the food: scrambled eggs with cheese, bacon, fresh fruit, toast with the jam Hazel had made yesterday. A feast. Where's Hazel? Meeting with the Omega families, She's organizing a new program, education classes, skills training, better living conditions. Isaiah's expression softened. Your mate is determined to revolutionize pack hierarchy one omega at a time. Theodore grinned. She's stubborn. She's perfect. Isaiah ruffled Theodore's hair. Eat up. We have training in an hour. Theodore paused mid-bite. Training? Did you think I'd forget? Isaiah's smile was gentle. Wolf or no wolf, your pack. That means you train. Michael's agreed to teach you hand-to-hand combat, self-defense, how to hold your own against wolves 3 times your size. But I can't shift. I can't. You stood against a rogue to protect a pup. You were brave when most warriors would have run. That's not nothing, Theodore. That's everything. Isaiah's hand cupped his face. I want you to be able to protect yourself. Not because I think you're weak, because I think you're strong enough to be even stronger. Theodore's eyes burned with tears. You really mean that? Every word. Isaiah pressed a kiss to his forehead, something he'd started doing recently, making up for 5 years of missed affection. Now, eat. Michael doesn't tolerate tardiness. Not even for the Alpha's son. Hazel sat in the newly renovated Omega housing complex and looked at the 15 faces watching her with a mixture of hope and skepticism. The building had been a storage facility, dark, cramped, barely functional. Now, after 3 weeks of renovation funded by Alpha Isaiah, it was clean, bright, with individual rooms instead of communal bunks, a shared kitchen, and a common area for gatherings. Small changes. But to Omegas who'd never had privacy or dignity, it was revolutionary. I know some of you are wondering why I called this meeting, Hazel began. Wondering what an Omega Luna actually means for your lives. It means you got lucky, someone muttered. Found an Alpha who didn't care about rank. Hazel didn't take offense. You're right. I did get lucky. But I'm not here to gloat about my good fortune. I'm here to change the system that made us believe luck was the only way out. That got their attention. For generations, Omegas have been treated as lesser. As servants, as breeding stock. As wolves who exist to serve stronger ranks. We've been taught to keep our heads down, accept our lot, be grateful for scraps. Hazel's voice hardened. I'm here to tell you that's ending. Now. Luna Hazel, an older Omega named Stella Stout, spoke up carefully. With respect. The Alpha may support you, but the pack won't change overnight. Most still see us as. I know what they see. And I know changing centuries of hierarchy won't happen in weeks or months. But it starts with us. Hazel leaned forward. I'm establishing the Omega Development Program. Education classes for anyone who wants to learn to read, write, manage finances. Skills training, healing, cooking, crafts that can generate income. And most importantly, a council. An Omega Council that represents your interests in pack decisions. Shocked silence. You're giving us a voice? Someone asked. Disbelief clear. I'm giving you what you should have had all along. A say in your own lives. Hazel pulled out papers. These are the proposed program details. Look them over. Give me feedback. Tell me what you need, what would actually help. This isn't about me imposing changes. It's about empowering you to demand better. Stella took the papers with shaking hands. Luna, if this works, if you can actually do this, you'll change everything. Then let's change everything. Hazel smiled. Together. The meeting continued for 2 hours. By the end, Hazel had volunteers for every program, ideas for improvements she hadn't considered, and 15 Omegas who looked at her not with envy or resentment, but with hope. She left feeling lighter than she had in weeks. Outside, she found Isaiah waiting. He leaned against a tree, arms crossed, watching her with an expression that made her heart skip. How long have you been standing there? She asked. Long enough to fall in love with you all over again. He pushed off the tree and crossed to her. You're magnificent. You know that? I'm doing what should have been done years ago. You're revolutionizing pack structure. Most Lunas focus on social events and pack politics. You're dismantling oppressive hierarchy systems. His hand cupped her face. You're magnificent. Hazel leaned into his touch. How's Theodore doing? Currently getting his ass kicked by Michael. And loving every second of it. Isaiah's smile was pure pride. He's determined to prove himself. Says if he can't be strong with a wolf, he'll be strong without one. That's my boy. Our boy, Isaiah corrected. Then his expression grew serious. There's something I need to tell you. About the mate bond. Hazel's stomach tightened. What about it? I've been researching, calling alpha contacts in other territories, consulting with healers, trying to understand how a second chance bond between alpha and omega is possible. He took her hands. I found something. It's rare, only documented 3 times in the last 500 years. But it happens when the bond serves a greater purpose. What kind of purpose? Evolution, change. When a pack needs to transform, the moon sometimes grants bonds that shouldn't exist to force that transformation. His voice softened. We weren't just meant to be mates, Hazel. We were meant to change Silvercrest. To show that strength comes in many forms. That hierarchy can evolve. That love matters more than rank. Hazel's eyes shimmered. That's a lot of pressure. That's why the moon chose us. Because she knew we could handle it. He pulled her close. Because she knew we'd fight for it. Together. Hazel whispered. Always together. He kissed her deep and slow and full of promise. When they pulled apart, Hazel rested her forehead against his. I need to tell you something too, she said quietly. What? I might be pregnant. Isaiah went completely still. What? I'm not sure yet, it's too early to confirm. But I've been feeling different, and if I am… She looked up at him nervously. I know we talked about taking things slow, and a baby this soon might complicate everything. Isaiah kissed her again, more urgently this time. When he pulled back, his eyes were bright with tears. A baby. Our baby. You're not upset? Upset? Hazel? His voice broke. I'm terrified and thrilled and so fucking grateful I can barely think straight. She laughed, relief flooding through her. So you're okay with maybe having a child? I'm more than okay. He pulled her tight against him. I'm blessed. The moon gave me a second chance at being a father. I won't waste it. What if the baby is Omega? Or Wolfles like Theodore? Then they'll be perfect. Isaiah's hand rested on her still flat stomach. Wolf or human, Alpha or Omega, our child will be loved. That's all that matters. Hazel buried her face in his chest, letting happiness wash over her. After years of loss and loneliness, she'd found home, not just in a mate, but in a family, in a purpose, in love that didn't care about rank or bloodlines or tradition. The training yard was usually reserved for seasoned warriors, enforcers practicing combat, wolves honing their shifts, strength conditioning that would break lesser beings. Today, it held one very determined 5-year-old getting systematically defeated by Michael Boyer. Theodore hit the mat for the 7th time in 10 minutes. His arms shook. His legs felt like jelly. But he got up. Again. Good, Michael said. Approval clear in his voice. You're learning. Most pups give up after 3 falls. You're on 7 and still standing. I'm not giving up. Theodore wiped sweat from his face. Show me that hold again. The one where you flipped me. Michael demonstrated slowly. See how I use your momentum against you. You don't need to be stronger if you're smarter. You redirect the force, shift your weight, and he executed the move in slow motion. Down they go. Theodore watched carefully, memorizing each movement. Can I try? Sure, but I'm not going easy on you. I don't want you to. They squared off. Michael came at him with controlled aggression. Theodore tried to implement the technique, failed, got thrown again. But this time he understood where he'd gone wrong. Again, he demanded. Michael grinned. You've got your father's stubbornness. Good. They went again, and again, and again. By the 20th attempt, Theodore managed to redirect Michael enough to throw him off balance. Not enough to actually take him down, but enough to make the massive warrior stumble. Michael laughed, genuine and delighted. There it is. Did you feel that? Theodore's eyes were bright with excitement. I felt it. I made you move. You absolutely did. In about 6 months, you'll be able to take down wolves twice your size. In a year, you'll be dangerous. Michael ruffled his hair. Wolf or not, kid, you're going to be formidable. Theodore glowed under the praise. A small crowd had gathered to watch warriors, enforcers, pack members who'd heard about the Alpha Sun training. Theodore tensed, expecting mockery or pity. Instead, he heard respect. Look at him go. Got his father's determination. That's the boy who stood against a rogue. Brave little thing. Theodore looked at Michael uncertainly. They're talking about me like I'm impressive. Because you are. Michael crouched down to his level. You know what I see when I look at you, Theodore? What? A warrior. Not because of what you can shift into. Because of who you are. Your courage. Your heart. Your refusal to give up even when everything seems impossible. That's what makes a warrior. Not fur and claws. Theodore's throat closed up. Really? Really? Michael stood and addressed the gathered crowd. This pup right here? He's going to be someone. Mark my words. In 10 years. You'll all be telling stories about the Wolfles boy who became legendary through pure determination. The crowd murmured agreement. Some even clapped. Theodore felt something shift inside him. Not his wolf, he still didn't have that. But something just as powerful. Belief in himself. That evening, the three of them sat together in the Alpha's quarters, the rooms that had once been cold and empty, now filled with warmth and laughter. Hazel curled up on the couch with a book. Isaiah sat in his reading chair with pack reports that needed review, and Theodore lay on the floor with colored pencils, drawing pictures of the training moves Michael had taught him. Normal, domestic, perfect. Father? Theodore asked without looking up from his drawing. Can I ask you something? Always. Do you think I'll ever get my wolf? Isaiah set down his reports. This was a question Theodore had avoided asking directly. Honestly? Honestly. I don't know. The healers say it's unlikely. The elders say it's impossible. But, Isaiah moved to sit on the floor beside Theodore. I've learned that impossible things happen when you least expect them. You and Hazel taught me that. Theodore nodded slowly. I think I'm okay if it never comes. I spent so long thinking I was worthless without a wolf. But now I know that's not true. I can be strong without one. I can matter without one. You always mattered, Isaiah said quietly. I know. Now. Theodore looked up at his father. But I needed you to see me first before I could see myself. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. Isaiah's hand rested on Theodore's shoulder. And for what it's worth, I'm sorry it took me so long to see you. I wasted 5 years that I can never get back. But we have now. And tomorrow. And all the days after that. Theodore smiled, small but genuine. That's what Hazel says, that we can't change the past but we can choose the future. Your Hazel is very wise. Our Hazel. Theodore corrected, echoing his father's earlier words. Hazel looked up from her book, eyes bright with emotion. Our family. Isa pulled them both close, one arm around Theodore, one around Hazel. Our family, he agreed. Whatever comes next, we face it together. Theodore leaned into his father's warmth and felt something he'd spent 5 years searching for. Peace. Not because everything was perfect. The pack still had wolves who doubted him. Still had traditions that needed changing. Still had challenges ahead. But he had a father who saw him. A mother figure who fought for him. A family that chose him. And that was worth more than any wolf ever could be. Later that night, after Theodore had fallen asleep in his room, Isaiah and Hazel stood on their private balcony overlooking pack territory. The moon hung full and bright above them, the same moon that had blessed their impossible bond, that had brought them together despite all logic and tradition. Do you ever wonder what she saw? Hazel asked quietly. The moon goddess. I mean, when she decided we should be mates, what did she see in us that made her think we could handle this? I think she saw what I see now. Isaiah wrapped his arms around her from behind, his hand resting on her stomach where their child might be growing. 2 broken people who refused to stay broken, who chose to fight for love instead of accepting loneliness, who believed healing was possible even when everyone said it wasn't. That's a lot of faith to put in an Omega and a grieving Alpha. That's why it worked. Because we didn't believe in ourselves yet. We believed in each other first. He pressed a kiss to her temple, and that made all the difference. They stood together in the moonlight, and somewhere in the pack house below, a wolfless boy slept peacefully for the first time in 5 years. The revolution had only just begun. But for now, In this moment, everything was exactly as it should be. A family, healing, together. Chapter 9. The Unexpected Gift. 6 months passed, like pages turning in a beloved book each day, bringing new growth, new challenges, new reasons to believe the impossible could become reality. Theodore turned 6 on a crisp autumn morning, and for the first time in his life, his birthday felt like a celebration rather than a reminder of everything he lacked. The pack gathered in the main hall, not out of obligation, but genuine affection. Children he'd trained with brought him drawings. Warriors gave him small, carved figures. Diana's daughter Mara had made him a friendship bracelet that he immediately put on. Hazel had organized everything, her now visible pregnancy making her glow with happiness. 5 months along, the healers confirmed what they'd suspected. She carried an alpha pup, strong, healthy, already showing signs of powerful wolf energy. The pack had celebrated that news too. An alpha heir from the Luna. It legitimized their bond in ways even the elders couldn't argue against. But today was about Theodore. "Make a wish," Hazel said, guiding him toward a cake she'd spent all morning baking. 6 candles flickered in the mid-morning light. Theodore closed his eyes. 1 year ago, he would have wished for a wolf, would have begged the moon for the one thing that would make him belong. Now, he wished for something different. Let this last. Let my family stay whole. Let me be brave enough to protect them. He blew out the candles. The pack cheered. Isaiah appeared beside him, placing a wrapped package in his hands. "From your mother." Theodore's breath caught. "What?" "Your mother made this before she died. She asked me to give it to you on your 6th birthday. Isaiah's voice was rough with emotion. I'd forgotten about it, buried it away with everything else that hurt too much to remember. But Hazel helped me find it last week. Theodore's hands shook as he unwrapped the package. Inside was a leather-bound journal. The cover was embossed with Theodore's name and a symbol he didn't recognize, a circle with a star inside surrounded by moon phases. "What is this?" Theodore whispered. "Open it." The first page held his mother's handwriting. "My dearest Theodore, if you're reading this, it means you've reached your 6th birthday. It means I'm not there to celebrate with you, and I'm so sorry for that. But I need you to know something important. You are special. Not because of any wolf you may or may not have. Not because of bloodlines or rank or tradition. You are special because you were born from love, the truest, deepest love I've ever known. Your father and I created you. And no matter what challenges you face, that love is woven into your very soul. This journal belonged to my great-grandmother. She was like you, Theodore. Human born to wolf parents. They called her broken too. But she became one of the greatest pack historians our line ever produced. She learned magic, studied ancient texts, became an advisor to 3 different alphas. Being different doesn't mean being less. It means being extraordinary in ways others can't understand yet. Use this journal to record your journey. Write your thoughts, your dreams, your fears. And when you feel lost, remember, you carry the strength of everyone who loved you, including me. All my love. Always and forever. Mother. Theodore couldn't see through his tears. Couldn't speak past the lump in his throat. Isa's hand rested on his shoulder. She knew, Theodore. Even before you were born, she knew you might not have a wolf. And she loved you anyway. She wanted you anyway. She called me extraordinary, Theodore managed. Because you are. Hazel knelt beside him, carefully managing her pregnant belly. Your mother saw what we all see now, that you're brave and kind and strong in ways that have nothing to do with shifting. Theodore clutched the journal to his chest and let himself cry, not from sadness, but from overwhelming gratitude. His mother had loved him, had known he might be different and loved him anyway, had believed he would be extraordinary. Around them, the pack watched with quiet respect. Some wiped their own eyes. Others smiled at the raw emotion. This was their alpha's son. Not broken. Not worthless. Extraordinary. The celebration continued throughout the day. Theodore spent the afternoon with Michael and the other training pups, showing off new combat moves he'd mastered. He was still smaller than everyone. Still human where they were wolf. But he held his own. By evening, he was exhausted and happy, the kind of tired that came from being fully alive instead of just surviving. Hazel found him sitting in the pack library, the journal open on his lap, a pen poised over blank pages. Writer's block? She asked gently. Theodore looked up and smiled. I don't know what to write first. There's so much I want to say. Start with today. Write about how you feel right now. Theodore considered. Then wrote, Today I turned 6. For the first time in my life, my birthday felt like a beginning instead of an ending. I have a father who sees me, a Hazel who fights for me, and a baby brother or sister coming soon. The pack doesn't look at me like I'm broken anymore. They look at me like I belong. Mother was right. Being different doesn't mean being less. It means being extraordinary in ways others can't understand yet. I still don't have a wolf. But I have something better. I have love. He showed Hazel what he'd written. She read it with tears in her eyes. Your mother would be so proud of you, she whispered. I wish she could have met you. I think you two would have been friends. I wish that too. Hazel's hand touched her belly. But I promise your little sibling will know all about their big brother. They'll know about your courage, your kindness, and how you saved their mother from a rogue before they were even born. Theodore grinned. You're going to embarrass me. That's what mothers do. She paused. Is it okay if I call myself that? Your mother? Theodore's answer was immediate. You are my mother. Not the one who gave birth to me, but the one who chose me. That counts just as much. Hazel pulled him into a careful hug. I love you, Theodore. So much. I love you too. They sat together in comfortable silence until Isaiah appeared in the doorway. There you are. I've been looking everywhere. His expression was strange, excited and nervous at once. Theodore, I need you to come with me. Both of you. What's wrong? Hazel asked, immediately alert. Nothing's wrong. Something's happening. Just come, please. They followed him through the pack house, out into the evening air, toward the sacred grove, a place usually reserved for pack ceremonies and moon rituals. The grove was filled with light, not torches or electric lights. Natural, ethereal light that seemed to emanate from the trees themselves. And in the center, standing beside the ancient altar stone, was an elderly woman Theodore had never seen before. She wore robes that seemed to shift colors in the strange light. Her hair was white as snow, her eyes silver like mercury. Power radiated from her in waves that made even Isaiah's alpha aura feel small. Who is she? Theodore whispered. Elder Kelly, Isaiah said quietly. A moon priestess, one of the most powerful magical beings in our territory. She arrived an hour ago asking to see you specifically. Theodore's heart raced. Me? Why? The woman smiled, kind and ancient and knowing. Because the moon has a message for you, little one. And I'm here to deliver it. She gestured for Theodore to approach. He looked at his father, who nodded encouragement. Theodore walked forward on trembling legs. The priestess knelt so they were eye level. Do you know what makes someone extraordinary, Theodore? My mother said it's being different in ways others can't understand. Your mother was wise. But there's more to it than that. The priestess touched his chest, right over his heart. Being extraordinary means having the courage to exist exactly as you are, even when the world tells you you're wrong. You've done that. For 6 years, you've existed in a world that told you were worthless. And you never once believed them in your soul. I felt worthless sometimes, Theodore admitted. Feeling and believing are different. Your soul always knew your worth. That's why the moon has been watching you. Her silver eyes gleamed. That's why she's about to give you a gift. Theodore's breath caught. What kind of gift? Close your eyes. Theodore obeyed. The priestess's hand remained over his heart, warm and pulsing with power. The moon sees all her children, the priestess said, her voice taking on a resonant quality. She loves the wolves and the humans and everything in between. She grieves when her children are rejected, when they're made to feel less than whole. And sometimes, rarely, but sometimes she intervenes. Theodore felt something building in his chest. Pressure, heat, not painful but intense. You were not meant to be wolfless, Theodore Foster. Your wolf was always there. But he was waiting. Waiting for what? Theodore's voice shook. Waiting for you to be ready. Waiting for you to learn that worth comes from character, not power. Waiting for you to understand that being extraordinary has nothing to do with what form you take. The priestess's hand grew warmer. Your wolf is not like other wolves. He is ancient, powerful, patient. He needed a vessel strong enough to contain him. And now, finally, you are. The pressure in Theodore's chest exploded, not with pain, with light. Theodore's eyes flew open, and he gasped. Inside him, something unfurled, something that had been coiled tight for 6 years, waiting for this exact moment. His wolf, not small, not weak, not omega or beta or even alpha, something else entirely. The priestess smiled. There he is. Theodore, meet your wolf. The moon's gift to a boy who proved worthy through courage alone. Theodore could feel him massive, ancient, powerful beyond measure. Silver fur with starlight woven through it. Eyes that held the wisdom of centuries. What? Theodore couldn't form words. What is he? A lunar wolf. Born directly from the moon's blessing. There are fewer than 10 in existence across all territories. They appear only when someone proves themselves worthy, through extraordinary courage and character. The priestess stood. Your wolf is more powerful than any alpha. More rare than any bloodline. And he is yours because you earned him. Theodore's vision blurred with tears. I have a wolf. You always had a wolf. He was just waiting for the right time. Theodore looked at his father, who stood frozen in shock, at Hazel, who was crying openly, at the pack members who'd gathered at the grove's edge, all staring at him with expressions of awe. Can I? Theodore's voice cracked. Can I shift? Not yet. Your body is still young. The shift will come naturally in a few months when you're physically ready. But you can feel him now, yes? You can communicate with him? Theodore closed his eyes and reached inward. His wolf was there, solid, real, present. Hello, Theodore thought. Hello, little brother, his wolf responded, voice ancient and amused. I've been waiting to talk to you for a very long time. Why didn't you come sooner? Because you needed to learn who you were without me first. Needed to discover your strength came from you, not from me. Now that you know that truth, we can be partners instead of you being dependent on me for worth. Theodore understood. If his wolf had come when he was 3 or 4, he would have believed his value came from the wolf. Would have thought the wolf made him worthy. Now he knew better. He was worthy because of who he was. The wolf was just a gift, a companion, a partner, not the source of his value. Theodore opened his eyes and looked at the priestess. Thank you. Don't thank me. Thank yourself. You earned this through 6 years of courage. She touched his face gently. Your mother saw this future. You know, before she died, she asked the moon to watch over you, to help you become who you were meant to be. This is the answer to her prayer. Theodore's tears fell freely now. She knew? She hoped. And hope, little one, is the most powerful magic of all. The priestess faded like morning mist, leaving only moonlight and the sound of Theodore's wolf howling in joy inside his chest. Isaiah crossed the distance in seconds and pulled Theodore into his arms. You have a wolf. You actually have a wolf. A lunar wolf, Theodore said, still amazed. The moon gave me a lunar wolf. Because you deserved it. Isaiah's voice broke. Because you proved you were extraordinary with or without one. Hazel joined them, wrapping her arms around both of them. The 3 of them stood together in the sacred grove, bathed in moonlight, while Theodore's wolf sang inside his chest. Around them, the pack began to kneel, not in fear, in respect. Their alpha son, the wolfless boy who'd proven his courage, who'd saved their children, who'd shown them that worth came from character, had been blessed by the moon herself. Theodore Foster was extraordinary. And now, finally, everyone could see it. Chapter 10. The Alpha, the Omega, and the Extraordinary Boy. 2 years later, Theodore stood at the edge of the training grounds, watching his 8-year-old packmates spar in their wolf forms. He was taller now, still lean but filling out with muscle from 2 years of intensive training. His hair had grown longer, falling into his eyes the way Hazel constantly told him it would if he didn't get it cut. But the most dramatic change wasn't visible to anyone watching. It was the massive silver wolf resting inside his chest, patient and powerful, waiting for the moment Theodore would finally be ready to shift. Soon his wolf, he'd named him Orion, after the constellation his mother used to point out, whispered, "Your body is almost ready. Maybe another month." "I'm nervous," Theodore admitted. "So am I. But we'll do it together." Theodore smiled. Over the past 2 years, Orion had become his closest friend, his confidant, his partner in every sense. They talked constantly about pack politics, about training, about the fears that still sometimes crept in during dark nights. Having a wolf hadn't magically solved all Theodore's problems. He still had nightmares about his early childhood, still sometimes heard the echo of cruel words in quiet moments. But now he had someone who understood him completely, who'd chosen him, who'd waited 6 years just to be his companion. Theodore, Michael's voice called from across the training ground. Stop daydreaming and get over here. We're working on strategic planning today. Theodore jogged over to where Michael had assembled a group of young wolves, a mix of ages from 7 to 15. This was the new integrated training program Hazel had helped establish. Instead of separating wolves by rank or age, they trained together, learning from each other. All right, Michael said, spreading a map across a table. You're a patrol squad. You spot rogue activity on the eastern border. What's your first move? The older wolves immediately started shouting answers. Theodore hung back, listening, thinking. Theodore? Michael prompted. What do you think? I think we're asking the wrong question. Theodore said carefully. Everyone turned to look at him. Explain, Michael ordered. You said we spot rogue activity. But how? Did we smell them? See tracks? Get a report from scouts? The answer changes depending on how we discovered them. Theodore stepped closer to the map. If we smelled them, they're close, we need immediate defensive positioning. If we saw tracks, we have time to gather intel. If scouts reported it, we need to verify before committing forces. Michael's grin was proud. Exactly right. Anyone can throw bodies at a problem. Leaders assess situations first. He looked at the group. Theodore doesn't have his shift yet, but he's already thinking like a strategist. That's what I want from all of you. Brains before brawn. The older wolves looked at Theodore with newfound respect. He'd earned that over 2 years of consistently proving himself not through strength, but through intelligence, creativity, and an uncanny ability to see angles others missed. Training continued for another hour. By the end, Theodore was exhausted but satisfied. He was about to head home when a commotion near the pack house caught his attention. Wolves running, excited chatter. Something was happening. Theodore ran toward the noise and found a crowd gathered outside the medical wing. His heart stopped. Hazel. He pushed through the crowd, ignoring protests, until he burst through the door. Isa stood in the hallway, pacing, his face a mixture of terror and joy. Father? Theodore's voice was small. Is she? She's fine. She's perfect. They're both perfect. Isa's eyes were wet with tears. Theodore, you have a sister. The words took a moment to register. Then Theodore's face split into the biggest smile. A sister? I have a sister? You have a sister. Born 20 minutes ago. Healthy, strong. Already showing alpha traits. Isaiah pulled Theodore into a crushing hug. You're a big brother. Theodore hugged back, laughing through happy tears. Can I see her? Can I see them? Hazel's asking for you. They entered the birthing room together. Hazel lay propped up on pillows, exhausted but radiant, holding a tiny bundle wrapped in soft blankets. She looked up when they entered, and her smile was pure sunshine. Theodore, come meet your sister. Theodore approached carefully, almost reverently. Hazel shifted the blanket so he could see the baby's face. She was tiny, perfect, with a dusting of dark hair and the smallest fingers Theodore had ever seen. As he watched, she opened her eyes wolf gold, already showing the beast inside her. She's beautiful, Theodore whispered. She is. Hazel's free hand found his. We were thinking about names. Your father suggested something, but I wanted to ask you first. How would you feel if we named her after your mother? Theodore's breath caught. Really? Your mother should be honored. Remembered. This little girl is part of her legacy too. Hazel looked at the baby. We were thinking Diana Celine. Diana after my mother. Selene after yours. Theodore's eyes burned with tears. She would have loved that. Then it's decided. Isaiah came to stand beside them, completing their circle. Welcome to the world, Diana Celine Romero. The baby made a small noise, not quite a cry, more like a curious sound. Theodore reached out tentatively, and her tiny hand wrapped around his finger with surprising strength. She knows you, Orion said softly. She recognizes her brother. Hi, Diana, Theodore whispered. I'm Theodore, your big brother, and I promise I'm going to protect you always. I'm going to make sure you never feel unwanted or broken or less than anyone else. You're going to grow up knowing you're loved, I promise. The baby's eyes focused on him with startling clarity. Then she smiled an actual smile. Impossible at her age, but unmistakable. Hazel laughed wetly. I think she approves. They stood together, mother, father, son, and daughter, and Theodore felt complete in a way he'd never imagined possible 6 years ago when he was the Wolfles boy everyone pitied. Now he was a big brother, a pack member, a wolf, even if he hadn't shifted yet, a son to parents who loved him. Extraordinary. 3 months later, on a night when the moon hung full and silver in the sky, Theodore felt something change. He was in the sacred grove he came here often to meditate with Orion, to talk to his wolf without the noise of pack life distracting them. Tonight felt different. It's time, Orion said. If you're ready, Theodore's heart raced. I'm ready, but what if I can't do it? What if we'll do it together? Like everything else, trust me. Theodore closed his eyes and reached for that connection. Felt Orion rise to meet him. Felt the shift begin, not painful, like he'd feared, but natural, like slipping into water. Bones realigned, muscles reformed. Fur erupted across his skin. When Theodore opened his eyes, he stood on 4 legs instead of 2. He looked down at himself, silver fur that seemed to hold starlight, paws that were larger than any alpha's, a body that radiated power even in stillness. Look up, Orion whispered. Theodore raised his head and saw his reflection in the grove's sacred pool. He was massive, larger than his father's alpha form. His fur gleamed silver white, and his eyes glowed like captured moonlight. Beautiful, Orion said with satisfaction. We are beautiful. Theodore wanted to howl, wanted to run, wanted to test this new body and see what it could do. But first, he needed to show his family. He ran through the forest, feeling the wind in his fur, the earth under his paws. Everything was sharper, clearer, more vivid. The world through wolf eyes was overwhelming and perfect. He burst into the pack house clearing and howled. The sound that emerged wasn't just loud, it was powerful, ancient. The kind of howl that made every wolf in a 10-mile radius stop and listen. Within seconds, pack members poured out of the house. His father shifted mid-run, his massive black alpha wolf racing toward Theodore. They met in the center of the clearing. Isaiah circled him, ears forward, tail wagging slightly. You shifted, his father's voice came through the pack bond. Finally, Theodore agreed. You're magnificent, son. Other wolves arrived. Michael shifted and play bowed. Pack members stared in awe at the lunar wolf their alpha son had become. Then Hazel emerged, carrying baby Diana. She stopped at the edge of the clearing, eyes wide. Theodore trotted over and carefully, so carefully, lowered his massive head to nuzzle the baby. Diana giggled and grabbed handfuls of his fur. You're beautiful, Hazel whispered. Theodore, you're absolutely beautiful. Theodore shifted back, the return to human form as natural as the change to wolf. He stood there, naked and covered in moonlight, laughing with pure joy. I did it, he said. I actually did it. You absolutely did. Hazel handed Diana to another pack member and wrapped Theodore in a blanket someone provided, then in a fierce hug. I'm so proud of you. Isaiah shifted back and joined them, pulling his entire family close. My extraordinary son. I always knew you'd be someone amazing. You didn't always know that, Theodore said, but without accusation, just truth. No, but I should have. Isaiah's hand cupped Theodore's face. I should have seen you from the beginning, should have known that worth doesn't come from what you can do, but who you are. You taught me that. You and Hazel both. Around them, the pack watched not with pity or disgust, but with pride. Their future Luna's brother, the lunar wolf who'd proven extraordinary long before he ever shifted. Theodore Foster. Once the wolfless boy. Now something legendary. But still, at his core, just Theodore. The boy who'd learned to be brave when the world called him broken. The boy who'd chosen love when hate would have been easier. The boy who'd proven that being extraordinary had nothing to do with what you were born with and everything to do with who you chose to become. 5 years later, Theodore stood at 13 years old on the Alpha's platform, watching his father address the assembled territory Alphas. This was the annual summit, a gathering where packs discussed treaties, disputes, and shared news. This year's summit was historic, because Isaiah was proposing something radical. A complete restructuring of how packs treated Omegas and Wolfles individuals. For generations, Isaiah's voice carried across the hall. We've operated under a hierarchy that values power over character, bloodlines over courage. We've relegated Omegas to servitude and dismissed Wolfless individuals as broken. I'm here to tell you that system is not only cruel, it's wasteful. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, some approving, many skeptical. My mate is Omega. She's revolutionized our pack-established education programs, skills training, an Omega Council that advises on pack decisions. Our pack is stronger, more innovative, more united because we stopped wasting half our population's potential. My son, Isaiah's gaze found Theodore in the crowd, was wolfless until age 8. During those years he developed strategic thinking, emotional intelligence, and courage that most wolves never cultivate. When his wolf finally came, he was more prepared to lead than pups who'd shifted at age 3. Being different didn't make him less. It made him extraordinary. Theodore felt pride swell in his chest. Not just in himself, but in his father the Alpha who'd overcome his own prejudices to become someone who fought for systemic change. I'm proposing an inter-pack accord, Isaiah continued, a commitment to evaluate wolves based on their contributions and character, not their rank or abilities. Omegas given opportunities for education and advancement, wolfless individuals supported rather than ostracized. A new hierarchy based on merit rather than birth. That's madness, an older Alpha called out. You're asking us to overturn centuries of tradition. I'm asking you to evolve, Isaiah countered. Because packs that don't evolve die. And I, for one, am not interested in letting my pack become extinct because we were too afraid to change. The debate raged for hours. By the end, Isaiah had signatures from 40% of the attending Alphas. Not a majority, but a significant start. Later, as they walked back to their quarters, Isaiah placed a hand on Theodore's shoulder. Someday, this will be your fight. When you're Alpha, you'll continue pushing for change. Theodore looked at his father seriously. When I'm Alpha, I won't need to fight for it. Because by then, it'll already be normal. You're building the foundation now. I'll just maintain what you've created. Hazel, walking beside them with 11-year-old Diana on her hip. The girl insisted she was too old to be carried, but still loved it, smiled. Listened to him, already thinking like a leader. He learned from the best, Isaiah said, looking at her with such love it made Theodore's chest warm. Diana squirmed down and grabbed Theodore's hand. Teddy, can you shift? I want to ride on your back. Diana, your brother is not a horse, Hazel scolded, but she was smiling. I don't mind. Theodore grinned at his little sister. Come on, troublemaker. Let's give you a ride. He shifted the process second nature now and lowered himself so Diana could climb onto his back. She shrieked with delight as he loped through the hallway, Hazel calling after them to be careful. Theodore's wolf form was even larger now, more powerful. But he used that power for joy, for playing with his sister, for protecting his pack, for showing younger wolves that strength without compassion was worthless. That night, the family gathered in their quarters. Diana fell asleep, sprawled across Theodore's wolf form like he was a giant pillow. Hazel curled up against Isaiah on the couch, reading through proposals for the next Omega Development Initiative. And Theodore, no longer the wolfless boy, no longer broken or unwanted, looked at his family and felt complete. We did good, Orion said contentedly. We did, Theodore agreed. We did very good. Outside, the moon shone bright and full, blessing them all. The Alpha who'd learned to love again. The Omega who'd revolutionized their world. The extraordinary boy who'd proven that worth came from within. And the little girl who'd grow up in a world where being different was celebrated, not condemned. A family. Broken once, but healed through courage and choice. Together, always together. Epilogue. 15 years later. Theodore Romero stood before the pack at 28 years old, accepting the alpha mantle from his father. Isaiah was stepping down not from weakness, but choice. He and Hazel wanted to travel, to visit other packs, to continue spreading their message of equality and evolution. Theodore was ready. Beside him stood his mate, a brilliant Omega engineer named Lolita Patterson, who developed new water purification systems that 3 packs now used. She was brilliant, fierce, and completely unimpressed by Theodore's lunar wolf status. He loved her madly. "You ready for this?" she whispered as the ceremony began. "Terrified," he admitted. "Good. Means you'll be careful with the power." Theodore looked out at his pack, young and old, Alpha and Omega. Wolves and the few wolfless individuals who'd sought sanctuary here. A pack that had evolved beyond hierarchy to something better. His father's legacy. His mother's vision. Hazel's revolution. Now his responsibility. The elder conducting the ceremony placed the Alpha's blessing on Theodore's forehead. Power flooded through him, pack bonds snapping into place. Awareness of every wolf under his protection suddenly crystal clear. He felt the weight of leadership settle onto his shoulders, and he felt Orion rise inside him, ready to lead alongside him. "Here we go," his wolf said. "Here we go," Theodore agreed. He raised his voice to address his pack. "I stand before you as your Alpha. I promise to lead with courage, with compassion, and with the knowledge that every wolf in this pack matters. Not because of what they can become, but because of who they are. This is the pack my father built, my mother died protecting, Hazel revolutionized. And I will honor their legacy by making sure we continue to evolve, continue to improve, continue to prove that being extraordinary comes from character, not rank." The pack howled their approval. The sound echoed through the territory, carrying on the wind. From the crowd, Theodore saw his father smile with pride. Saw Hazel crying happy tears. Saw Diana, now 23 and a formidable warrior in her own right, grinning at him. Saw his mother's journal sitting on the altar, open to the page he'd written the day he turned 6. "Today I turned 6. For the first time in my life, my birthday felt like a beginning instead of an ending. It had been a beginning, and now, as Alpha, Theodore would make sure every wolf in his pack got their own beginning, their own chance to prove they were extraordinary, because everyone deserved that. Everyone deserved to be seen, and under Theodore's leadership, everyone would be. The moon blessed them all, Alpha, Omega, and everyone in between, and in the sacred grove where a priestess had once delivered the moon's message to a 6-year-old boy, a silver wolf howled, celebrating courage, celebrating change. Celebrating a family that had taught the world what it meant to be truly extraordinary. As we close Theodore's chapter, I'll leave you with this thought. Worthiness isn't given. It's recognized. Theodore was always extraordinary. It just took the right people to see it. But here's my question for you. What would you do differently if you truly believed you were enough exactly as you are, right now? No wolf needed, no transformation required. Just think about it. Share your thoughts in the comments if you feel moved too. And if Theodore's story resonated with you, please like this video. It tells me these stories matter to you. Until next time, remember, you're more extraordinary than you know.